Whether it is us or the foreign realm, we are both just low-level dimensions. In fact, we are the bottom of the pile among all low-level dimensions. When these words fell, a wave of commotion arose among the crowd. How could this be? The celestial realm has heavenly venerates. And just what kind of powerful existence were heavenly venerates? There could be no being stronger. Since that was the case, they still could not be considered a high-level dimension? Impossible. You must be grandstanding. Even if we are slightly weaker than the foreign realm, we should still be considered a medium-level dimension at least. Everyone was shaking their heads, completely unable to accept this. Ling Han chuckled. The whole Genesis world is like this. A stronger dimension would be invading a weaker dimension. Take the foreign realm, for example. While they are invading us, they themselves are also being invaded by the dark inverse realm. After a pause, he continued, and us? We are only being invaded, yet are not invading other realms. That is because we are already at the bottom rank of all the dimensions. Everyone was instantly rendered speechless. Ling Han's words were very rational, though the prerequisite was that what he had explained about the Genesis world was true. With the invasion of other dimensions, our whole world will be destroyed. Thus, we must not have any delusions, Ling Han stated gravely. Hong Huang was impatient. There were some things that he had heard the sealed emotion, Heavenly Venerable, occasionally speak of. He was completely uncaring whether the celestial realm would be destroyed or otherwise, because if that day truly came, the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable would bring his line and leave the celestial realm with all of them. On the contrary, this was a great opportunity. The sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable could transcend and bring their line to a high-level dimension. Everyone would have a wider space for growth. Because the heaven and earth was different. The difficulty level of advancing into the Heavenly Venerable tier in a low-level dimension would definitely be higher than in a high-level dimension. It could not be helped. This was caused by the environmental conditions. What does this have to do with you becoming stronger? He asked. There was naturally no need for Ling Han to answer him, but he glanced at the others and said slowly, because while realms are different, the regulations also seem different, yet there are a great many similarities. Though our celestial realm is slightly weaker, in terms of regulations, we, too, have our own unique traits. If we can combine the two, we can use the strengths of others to make up for our own weaknesses. Then, battle prowess naturally would become even stronger. As he spoke, he shot to stand right in front of Hong Huang with a single step and shot out a fist. Hong Huang raised his fists to parry, yet with a boom, his gloves flew off his hands, and his whole arm had also instantly turned into a shower of blood. It was like Ling Han was teaching by example, but this was not battle prowess that had been produced after melding the power of regulation of the two realms at all, but rather a body art that he had cultivated through extracting the power of heaven and earth. But for the sake of proving how powerful this was, Ling Han did not care at all. In any case, it was fine as long as everyone understood that his words were true. Realization dawned on everyone. Those powerful celestial kings and prodigies immediately looked tempted. They were all eager and keen, wanting to enter into the foreign realm so that they could further raise their own battle prowess. It was too unfortunate for Hong Huang. There was absolutely no one that cared about his life or death. He gritted his teeth strongly. With how overbearing the heavenly venerate Wu Lu who was backing Ling Han up was, who would dare to interfere in the idle matters of others? Hadn't they seen that even the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable and Jiu Heavenly Venerate had both yielded? If anyone wanted to deal with Ling Han, they could only send top-tier prodigies whose cultivation could only be superior to Ling Han's by 2 minor levels at most to make the move. But from the look of things now, to say nothing of an advantage of 2 minor levels, even one with an advantage of 10 might not be a match for Ling Han, either. Ling Han grinned. I have already attained small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier in the foreign realm, but because of the different regulations of the celestial realm, I look like how I did when I left the celestial realm. He stated his true cultivation level clearly, which was also deliberately laying a trap for others so that he could draw out those who harbored malice towards him. Though he could no longer depend on the Black Tower now, Ling Han was brimming with confidence and dared to face all challenges and difficulties. Meanwhile, Hong Huang was extremely depressed. As it turned out, Ling Han's cultivation level was the same as his. Then, with how the former had also fused the regulations of two realms, it was no wonder that his battle prowess was stronger than his. Chapter 2375, Kill Again. Chapter 2375, Kill Again. I forfeit. Hong Huang forced out through gritted teeth. A man could take what came. This time, he was indeed no match for Ling Han. However, after this, he would ask for the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerables help to send him into the foreign realm. In any case, they had an agreement with the foreign realm, so he would not have to worry about being slaughtered and eaten there. When he, too, fused the regulations of the two realms, he would return and defeat Ling Han. Ling Han said nothing further and merely shot another punch. What are you doing? Hong Huang roared in fury. He had already forfeited the battle. Killing you, Ling Han declared menacingly. Previously, Hong Huang had been extremely overbearing. Just because he was the disciple of a heavenly venerate, he had acted without any scruples at all in the Saintly Origin Academy and had repeatedly attacked him even. Did he think he had forgotten it all? You dare. Hong Huang could only parry with a single arm. At most, he could only unleash 80% of his normal battle prowess, so he was naturally even less of a match for Ling Han. Why wouldn't I dare? Ling Han humphed. He dared to attack even the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable, what more a mere ascending origin tier. When he had become a Heavenly Venerate himself, he would obliterate the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable sooner or later. Some celestial kings spoke up to mediate the strife. After all, Hong Huang was a monarch star, and would definitely become a ninth heaven celestial king in the future. He would be a pillar of support for the resistance against the invasion of the foreign realm. Ling Han smirked coldly. I forgot to tell you guys. Sealed Emotion, Jiu, and Green Flames have already collaborated with the foreign realm and plan to extract the source power of the celestial realm when the celestial realm is destroyed so that they can realize their own transcendence. Hence, there is no need to expect anything from any one of their line. In any case, they will not be sharing the fate of the celestial realm. What? When the celestial kings heard this, they all frowned. Some of them did not believe it, but when they thought carefully about the actions of the three heavenly venerates throughout the years, it was indeed as Ling Han said. They had not done anything for the sake of resisting the foreign realm. The matter over a dozen epochs ago was one thing. There was no one here that had lived that long, but 8 epochs ago, the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had faced off against the foreign realm Heavenly Venerates on his own, and in the end sacrificed his life to barricade the passageway of the two realms. There were still many veteran celestial kings that had experienced that battle. Furthermore, the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had also manifested previously, and this was proof that could not be more obvious. The 3 great Heavenly Venerates were completely passive. As it turned out, they had long since made their decision to destroy the celestial realm. The only reason that they had not interfered was because they were too strong and would be targeted by the heaven and earth. Hence, they required the help of the foreign realm to accomplish this in their stead. No wonder. Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu had returned from the foreign realm, yet was faced with the assault of the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable and Jiu Heavenly Venerate. Furthermore, they were even determined to kill Ling Han because it was extremely possible that the latter would become a Heavenly Venerate in the future. Whether it was the Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu or Ling Han becoming a Heavenly Venerate, as long as they were there, they would definitely be able to stop the invasion of the foreign realm, or at least delay it, just like how the karmic life Heavenly Venerable had done, causing a delay for as long as 8 epochs. This was detrimental to the benefits of Jiu Heavenly Venerate and the others, so they naturally wanted to make a move on Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu and Ling Han. Ling Han shot up high and brandished a fist which he shot straight at Hong Huang's head. Hong Huang parried. Pa! His remaining arm was also completely destroyed. He released a furious roar, but turned around and fled. His opponent was too strong, and there was no way he could be a match. Ling Han burst forth with frightening physical power and caught up to him in a single step. In terms of short bursts of power, body art naturally far surpassed regulations. He shot another punch, which landed on Hong Huang's back. Pong! Hong Huang's whole person was beaten until he burst. The power he had put into his defense could not even withstand a single blow. Ling Han bathed in Hong Huang's shower of blood, standing proudly in midair. Though the person he had killed was only an ascending origin tier, Hong Huang was a monarch star, and would have definitely become a ninth heaven celestial king in the future, so how much did he weigh? Even celestial kings were speechless, feeling that Ling Han was really on opposing sides with the sealed emotion heavenly venerable now. He was outrageously brave and truly completely brazen. Ling Han broke into a grin. Everyone, allow me to clean myself up before we go for a drink. Mainly, he had to first deal with the human slaves that he had brought back from the foreign realm. They cultivated the regulations of the foreign realm, so their strength would definitely drop greatly after returning to the celestial realm. Thankfully, there were not many elites among them at all. Most of them were at the severing mundane tier and below, and had not touched on regulations yet, so the effect on them actually was not very strong. At most, they would only be disliked by the heaven and earth. Ling Han would not interfere with the matter of settling them. In any case, the celestial kings would make their own decisions. Furthermore, they could also peek into the cultivation techniques of the foreign realm through them. This was considerably meaningful. After dealing with this matter, Ling Han went out to meet the others. There were many people, and those closer to him included the Rain Emperor, Yin Xinlu, Yi, and the others, as well as his previous 9 doppelgangers such as Ling Hua and the others. Those with more distant relations included monarch stars like Shi Chanzi and Jialan, monarch tiers, and some whom he had only met once or did not even know as well. Even Ran had come. After Shang Ji-Wei had fused herself with Heavenly Tao, the grudges between the Rock Palace and Four Seas Palace could be considered wiped from the slate. Thus, Ran planned to form a truce with Ling Han. Ling Han sighed. Though Shang Ji-Wei had caused the death of Yun, he had never met Yun before, either, so there wasn't any kind of affection between them. However, the care and concern that Shang Ji-Wei had shown him was genuine and touched him. Afterwards, when he had seen how deeply devoted she was, he truly admired her. After getting Hunyo's agreement, Ling Han and Ran wiped their old grudges from the slate. With the common, much stronger, enemy of the foreign realm facing them, what could not be let go of? Everyone asked about his experiences in the foreign realm, and Ling Han told them all that he could speak of, but did not mention anything about void particle energy. Even if he did, it would be useless. Even ninth heaven celestial kings could not grasp this kind of power. It was only an unrealistic utopian creation, and could not be realized at all. When everyone heard about how he had shown his powerful might in the foreign realm and defeated various prodigies, ultimately becoming the top monarch star, they were all extremely inspired. Who said that the celestial realm was weaker than the foreign realm? See, Ling Han had proven that someone who had walked out of the celestial realm was completely capable of becoming stronger than those of the foreign realm. Everyone drank and chatted, and Ling Han even took out some ancestral king blood, which he distributed among those close to him. The others were extremely envious of this, and wanted nothing more than to become Ling Han's lackeys. It continued for 7 days, and only then did they disperse and leave one after another. Ling Han then discussed the matters of their alliance with Yin Xinlu and Yi, giving them some resources, especially ancestral king blood. Then, he talked with the Rain Emperor for a while. ADN bestowed a considerable amount of ancestral king blood essence on his second brother. He would naturally not be stingy towards his brothers. He had also lent the Origin Magic Cube so that the Rain Emperor could study it, hoping that his second brother could walk even further. What was causing Ling Han a headache was little terror. This was a war machine born by the heaven and earth of the foreign realm, but the little guy's strength had directly fallen down to Genesis tier after coming into the celestial realm because of the different heaven and earth and different regulations. I'll think of something, Wally said. As long as the model for regulations is modified, anyone could actually survive in any dimension. Who's this guy? The large black dog ran over. He had shamelessly demanded a few bottles of Ancestral King blood essence from Ling Han, not caring about the fact that it was actually already useless for him. A guest from the Dark Inverse Realm, Ling Han replied with a smile. Though the large black dog kept screwing others over, he was definitely trustworthy. The large black dog was curious and continuously sniffed around Wally. I can't smell anything human. Wally was unwilling to show weakness and unleashed a green light scan on the large black dog. When the green light scan reached the spot between the large black dog's legs, the large black dog flew into a rage. Paw! He shot out a paw and sent Wally flying. Pong! His power was incredibly strong, and Wally was instantly shattered into pieces. Ah, how is he so fragile? The large black dog scratched his head, his eyes shifting around, looking guilty. Chapter 2376, The Large Black Dog vs. Wally. Chapter 2376, The Large Black Dog vs. Wally. Ling Han was also surprised. He knew that the large black dog had long since gained the strength of a celestial king, but in his eyes, Wally had always been mysterious and unfathomable. To think that he would actually die with a single strike, this was completely unexpected to him. It was like there had been a person that kept bragging that he had been the top elite in this world, and everyone had believed him, yet in the end, he had been pounded into mush by another. This gap was really too far. My condolences. The large black dog patted Ling Han's shoulder, looking as if this matter was completely unrelated to him. You damn dog. Ling Han wanted to kick this guy, but the large black dog was the master of trickery, so how could he possibly allow Ling Han to successfully sneak an attack on him? He instantly dodged with a twist of his behind. Ling Han was just about to speak when he shockingly discovered that the bits and pieces that Wally had fallen apart into were actually wriggling and surging towards the same spot. This was a little like millions and millions of ants returning to their nest. Very soon, these broken pieces gathered together and began to fuse. A spherical shape first appeared, and then it sprouted arms, thighs, and neck at the same time. When the head also appeared, the hands and feet also formed, becoming a human figure. Wally had come back to life. Both Ling Han and the large black dog were extremely stunned. You have already been blasted into bits, and you can actually still come back to life? Moreover, there isn't even a scratch on you? Interesting. The large black dog raised his paws, looking like he wanted to play again. Wally's eyes glowed. Shio, he shot towards the large black dog. You don't look all that powerful, but your destructive power is extremely astonishing, the large black dog exclaimed. He waved a paw to block him, and actually a few hairs were burnt off of him, exuding a faint charred smell. Ling Han knew that this should be Wally using void particle energy. Hence, even if his cultivation level was not all that high, his power was still extraordinary. Let Grandpa Dog see what you've got. The large black dog charged out. He did not use the great might of a celestial king, but rather suppressed his cultivation level to spar with Wally. Wally was aloof. He actually did not even ask why the large black dog wanted to attack him and merely focused on evasion. Occasionally, his eyes would glow red, condensing terrifyingly destructive lasers of light. The man and dog fought on and on. If the large black dog did not use Celestial King Tyr's power, he could do no harm to Wally at all. Instead, it would create a great problem for him. However, once the large black dog used Celestial King Tyr's power, Wally would not be able to bear it and would be very quickly smashed. But Wally would not bleed, so no matter how many pieces he was shattered into, there was no need to fear. They would very quickly piece themselves back together, and he would come back to life. Ling Han nodded internally. Wally had been created after the Dark Inverse Realm had expended the resources accumulated over several hundred epochs. If he could be easily killed by a celestial king, that would be too undeserving of the price paid to create him. All right. Let's all just sit down and have some tea, Ling Han said, smiling. After the large black dog destroyed Wally a good few times, he finally stopped and was even more curious about Wally now. If he, too, could possess this kind of recovery ability, he wouldn't have to fear even heavenly venerates in the future, would he? You have expended 30% of my energy, Wally said earnestly, and looked at the large black dog for a while. Bad doggy. Pooh. Ling Han instantly spluttered. He could not imagine that Wally would suddenly pop out with this phrase after a long while of silence. Brother, how did you learn this move? Why don't you teach it to Grandpa Dog? The large black dog clapped a paw on Wally's shoulder, looking like they were close brothers. This was extremely shameless. Wally frowned. I am a supreme war soldier built using superstring material. I am more inclined towards support, calculation, and analysis. You are a pure living organism of the canine species. How could you possibly be my brother? The large black dog's expression instantly turned dark. No matter how he thought about it, the other's words were all insults, but Wally had spoken them so seriously that it was difficult for him to show his anger. But he soon showed an expression of shock and turned to say to Ling Han, "What is this guy babbling about? Why doesn't Grandpa Dog understand?" Ling Han laughed and replied, "You were birthed by your parents, and as for him, he was created. Hence, if you want to learn this ability of his, you have to first commit suicide. Who knows, maybe they can modify you into a war soldier." The large black dog quickly shook his head. Grandpa Dog is living so free and carefree, and has absolutely no wish to die. Ling Han grinned. Damn dog, do you want to become a heavenly venerate? The large black dog's eyes lit up. What? You have some way, brat? Is there some kind of supreme celestial fruit? Quick, give it to Grandpa Dog. Will I become a supreme being upon consuming it? Ling Han glared at him in irritation. Why don't you just ascend to the heavens while you're at it? Brat, are you insulting Grandpa Dog? The large black dog also responded with a glare. Ling Han scoffed and said, Do you want to learn or not? If not, then forget it. It's not that I have no one to teach. Brat, you really can help me? The large black dog was doubtful. It was much too hard to become a heavenly venerate. It was rare for even one to appear over several epochs. For example, after heavenly venerate Wurli's emergence, over a dozen epochs have passed, and only the karmic life heavenly venerable had become a heavenly venerate. A mere ascending origin tier actually said that he had a way of becoming a heavenly venerate. How could a person, no, a dog believe that? Ling Han put on airs and grinned. If you don't believe me, then forget it. I believe you. The large black dog nodded hurriedly. Come, explain it to Grandpa Dog. Ling Han patted Wally's shoulder and said, then it would be on his shoulders. And? The large black dog was very surprised, but thinking about how Wally clearly did not have a very high cultivation level, yet was still capable of harming his fur, and could recover even after being blasted to bits by a celestial king, how could it be if there was nothing amazing about that? He really was a character. Instantly, he said shamelessly to Wally, Brother, let us talk closely. Wally released a green scan on the large black dog again, scanning him again. Why do you keep scanning me? The large black dog bared his teeth. If he did not believe that the other held the secret to becoming a heavenly venerate, he would definitely pounce and give him a few bites. To examine if you have rabies, Wally said seriously. Ha 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 ha. Ling Han laughed raucously. This Wally was no living creature, so how could he possibly get sick? Clearly, this was Wally trying to get revenge. Woof! The large black dog could not withhold himself any longer and pounced, wanting to bite Wally, but Ling Han just managed to stop him. Thankfully, the large black dog, too, had his own judgment and wanted to get the method to become a heavenly venerate out of Wally. Thus, Ling Han managed to stop him very easily. Otherwise, if a ninth heaven celestial king truly raged, how could it be that Ling Han could manage to pull him back? Wally still explained the essence of the Genesis world again, and also took out his formulae and models, completely confusing the large black dog. The latter was completely lost and had absolutely no idea. This was natural. This was completely different from the Tao he cultivated. It was equivalent to having established a different cultivation system, but this was a study of the essence of heaven and earth, so it would not be considered heresy by the heaven and earth. But the large black dog was very cunning. He could see the benefits of this kind of model and formula through Ling Han. Thus, propping up his head, he had already begun to ponder long and hard over it. I want to become a heavenly venerate. From today onwards, I will begin my seclusion. If anyone dares to disturb me, I will bite, no, pummel him to death, the large black dog declared. He dug a hole and buried himself in it. He really was going into seclusion. Ling Han snickered. Even if the large black dog was already a ninth heaven celestial king, it was a small matter to comprehend that model, but more importantly, he had never touched void particle energy and such before, so wanting to successfully convert the model into a cultivation technique was as difficult as ascending the heavens. This damn dog would eventually come to beg him. Chapter 2377, Ancestral Grounds of the Nine-Snake Tribe. Chapter 2377, Ancestral Grounds of the Nine-Snake Tribe. The large black dog had gone into seclusion, and the Rain Emperor had also begun his seclusion. They had glimpsed a brand new path of cultivation. Ling Han gave some guidance to Yin Xinlu and the others. These people were only monarch stars, with evolution index reaching only up to 9, while Ling Han was a supreme monarch star, whose evolution index was as high as 11. He had already completely surpassed them, and it could be claimed that they were on two completely different levels. Then, he began to mull over his next move. In terms of cultivation resources, he had an abundance. Just ancestral king blood essence alone was something he had a great amount of, to say nothing of helping him attain the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. Reaching great accomplishment level should be no problem, at least. Then he asked the women where they would like to travel. After all, they had been away from the celestial realm for so many years. Let's visit father and mother-in-law. In the end, the women reached an agreement. Ling Han nodded. He, too, wished to see his parents, and his son as well. However, Ling Jianxue had forgotten his parents now that he had his own wife, and who knew where he was enjoying life now. When children had grown up, it was up to themselves to walk their own paths. Ling Han decided to first see his parents, and then visit the Heavenly Saint Palace. That was also a place that had nurtured him. He also had to make a trip back to the Eastern Celestial Realm. His uncle, cousin, and other relatives were still there, as well as Little Stone, Azura Demon Emperor, and the other people or non-humans that had been the earliest to follow him. They set out, and they arrived where Ling Dongxing and his wife lived in seclusion after a 6-month-long journey. Seeing their son and daughters-in-law return, the old couple was very happy, but when they saw that there were no new grandsons or granddaughters, they couldn't help but feel slightly disappointed. Why was it that there was still no good news even with so many wives? Yu Hongchang even deliberately pulled the women aside for some quiet words, discreetly asking if it was her son that had some kind of problem in that aspect, or was he being too aloof, and the women all flushed bright red at this. Ling Yueyin and Cheng Zilong were also here. When she saw Ling Yueyin naturally called out, "Brother," sweetly, while Cheng Zilong appeared very terrified. After all, Ling Han had previously left behind a powerful psychological trauma for him. Ling Han stayed for a good many days and gave his parents and sister a great many cultivation resources. He was also continuously cultivating every day, his cultivation level presently rising rapidly. From the second secret onwards, he had been cultivating the regulations of the foreign realm, and now he had to cultivate again right from the beginning, replenishing the regulations of the celestial realm, which helped him to again achieve a new understanding of regulations. Especially when he was still standing at the height of the overlord of a realm, this understanding was naturally even more profound. With time acceleration effects, he already raised his cultivation level to the height of 11th secret in just a short 3 years. Now that he had reached this level, he had actually already returned to the ascending origin tier because a portion of his origin power had already been converted to source power, but he was in no rush to break through. He planned to settle himself and strengthen his foundations further. He planted the reincarnation tree. Since the Black Tower could no longer be used for a very long time, the reincarnation tree naturally had to be moved as well. By now, His need for the reincarnation tree was not too great. He had already cultivated a time-celestial physique, and he himself could turn into the flow of time, which was more useful than anything else. According to his parents, Ling Jianxue had returned several hundred years ago, but had left quickly afterwards. When Ling Han knew his son was fine, he was assured. Furthermore, as long as he was in the celestial realm, he would have an instinctive feeling about the safety of his family. Hence, when it was the 4th year, Ling Han was already restless and decided to leave. "Let's go and take a look at the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe first," the Empress suddenly said. Ling Han recalled how he had promised the Empress that they would go to the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe when they had been in the ancient realm. However, due to various incidents previously, this promise had never been fulfilled. Originally, the Empress wanted to return to her ancestral grounds primarily for the sake of completing her divine fetus, but now she had cultivated the greatest eternity everlasting physique, which could be considered the strongest physique in this world. What else could be stronger than time itself? Hence, completing the physique of the Nine-Snake tribe had become secondary, though having another physique would still be slightly beneficial. Returning was mainly a preoccupation for her, originating from the hope that had been passed through the generations to the Empress. "All right, we will go to the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe first, then return to the Eastern Celestial Realm," Ling Han decided. The group set out, heading towards the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe. Of course, there was a problem with this. They did not know where the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe was. Thankfully, the bloodline that the Empress had inherited contained some memories about her ancestral grounds. When she extracted them and compared them to a map, they finally found the location of the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe after a long period of study. It was in the scorching flames heaven, which was still considerably far from where they were. With the existence of transference portals, the journey was naturally no problem. They used transference portals one after another, saving countless amounts of time on the journey. About half a year later, they entered the scorching flames heaven. The ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe was in the western parts of the scorching flames heaven. There was a great sea there, and there was an island in this sea, which was named Nine-Snake Island. They arrived at the coast, and Ling Han took out a large ship from his spatial god tool. Because of the Black Tower, he had also developed the habit of placing various items in his spatial god tool. The group braved the winds and the waves, and several days later, a massive island appeared ahead of them. It could be seen that this island originally should have had a massive mountain, but now it had been severed in the middle and was only about 3 kilometers tall, looking very abrupt. The Empress's beautiful eyes widened slightly. She had finally returned to her ancestral grounds, which made her feel slightly excited. "Let's go." They disembarked and landed on the island. The ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe had already become ruins many, many years ago. That was because the ancestor of the 9 great ancestral flames had chosen to stand on the same side as the karmic life Heavenly Venerable all those years ago, and had suffered an attack from the forces that belonged to the sealed emotion Heavenly Venerable, Jiu Heavenly Venerate, and Green Flames Heavenly Venerate as a result, leading to many deaths of this tribe as the rest fled. The Empress was feeling rueful. She had finally realized the long-cherished wish of her parents, grandparents, and countless of her elders, and arrived at the ancestral grounds of their tribe. She walked very slowly, touching gently every blade of grass, every tree, every stone, and every pillar of this place. Who goes there? To actually dare barge into the ancestral grounds of our Luan clan? An admonishment rang out, and a man suddenly shot down ahead of them. He looked to be in his 20s, dressed all in black and majestic in appearance. Huh. Everyone exchanged looks, all appearing slightly surprised. Wasn't the Nine-Snake tribe almost fully exterminated? Even if there were some fortunate people who had managed to escape that entered into the ancient realm, how could they appear here? It should be known that it was practically impossible to return to the celestial realm after entering into the ancient realm. In the past, just how many forbidden lands were there in the ancient realm that had been forces that had fled from the celestial realm? But after so many years, Which one of them had managed to return to the celestial realm? Not even a single one. Your surname is Luan? Ling Han asked smilingly. If the other was really a descendant of the Nine Snake Tribe, this was inevitably a piece of good news for the Empress. She had finally found family and was no longer alone. I am Luan Tianjun, this young man declared proudly, and then looked askance at Ling Han and his group, putting on a lofty stance. However, when his eyes passed over such exquisite beauties like the Empress, Hunyo, and bewitching Maiden Ro, he couldn't help but look stunned. Just how many of you are there? Ling Han asked further. What are you asking this for? Luan Tianjuan's expression became alert, while also appearing slightly impatient. Just who was he? The Luan clan had the bloodline of a celestial king, noble and lofty in status. They could be considered the descendants of emperors. We're planning to visit family, Ling Han replied, smiling. Chapter 2378, Visiting Family. Chapter 2378, Visiting Family. Luan Tianjun immediately scoffed. How shameless. To actually want to develop relations with the descendants of a celestial king? Just how shameless was this? Just who do you think you are? He retorted disdainfully. Pa. The Empress moved and delivered a slap right on Luan Tianjuan's face, which suddenly sent him flying. So what if they were family? If they actually dared disrespect Ling Han, she would pummel even her own siblings. Luan Tianjun got back to his feet, holding his cheek with his right hand, and showing an expression of both fury and shame. Just who was he? He was the descendant of a celestial king, and someone actually dared to strike him? More importantly, the one who struck him was actually a woman at that, which was unacceptable to him, who was an extreme male chauvinist, and he was humiliated and infuriated to the extreme. You! How dare you! He shouted lowly as he sent out a signal for reinforcements. Ling Han smiled slightly and advised, Young man, you should be less proud and humbler in the future. In this world, there are a great many people that are stronger than you, and you should always be respectful, or you will be dead before you even knew it. This was really a genuine piece of advice from him. The Nine Snake Tribe had only had a celestial king before, and they were a target that was beaten down on at that. How many forces would feel wary about attacking them? If this brat still acted so arrogant when he ventured out, he would definitely lose his life the moment he encountered anyone with great strength or a powerful background. How could Luan Tianjun be willing to listen? He only knew that he had suffered an extraordinary humiliation. His eyes glared furiously at Ling Han, as if the one who had slapped him was not the Empress, but rather Ling Han. He did not immediately refute him, because he knew that he could not afford to mess around with this group of people. It was fine. HI's reinforcements would soon be arriving. As expected, only a while later, a loud whistle rang out, and a figure in black arrived in a flash. He was a young man in a tight-fitting black suit. He was extremely handsome, and it was clear that the Nine Snake Tribe possessed very attractive looks. He was filled with heroic spirit, and it seemed like there was a great furnace inside his body, exuding a frightening aura. It was obvious he was still very young, but astonishingly, he was already in the immortal palace tier. His talent was indeed extraordinary. This was also the reason for his soaring pride. He stood, arms crossed behind his back. It was only when he set eyes on the Empress, Hunyo, and bewitching Maiden Ro that his eyes shone involuntarily, but he managed to hide it very well. He was still looking very arrogant. Greetings, clansmen sang. Luan Tianjun hurriedly paid his respects, seeming extremely respectful, and making it seem like this was not a fellow clansman, but like he was a servant that was meeting his master. Luan Sang nodded proudly and then asked, What is going on here? They barged into our forbidden land and even attacked me. Luan Tianjun quickly made his complaint. This Luan Sang was one of the strongest of the younger generation. Even outside, he would still be considered one of the elites, and it was definitely no issue for him to suppress Ling Han and his group. Luan Sang humphed, and only then surveyed Ling Han and his group, stating calmly, I shall give you a chance to explain. Why have you barged into the forbidden land of our tribe? If it was not because of the Empress and the others, he would definitely not be so amicable and would directly suppress them. Ling Han said to the Empress, "Your family do not seem very friendly." Then, turning his head, he said, "Is this a forbidden land? Why did we not see any plaque that said this is a forbidden land? No trespassers allowed when we landed on the island." "Humph, this is the ancestral grounds of our nine-snake tribe. How could others be allowed to commit sacrilege here?" Luan Sang declared menacingly. His eyes burned with killing intent. Ling Han was the only man in his group, so he was displeased at this, no matter how he looked at it. Hence, he would find a reason to get rid of him. "Hee, it is yours just because you say it is?" Ling Han retorted with a laugh. "You dare to insult our line. You are seeking death." Luan Sang moved aggressively, delivering a palm strike to Ling Han. Boom! A brilliant light filled the skies. He had cultivated his third mystery realm, and now these three mystery realms were glowing simultaneously, exploding with terrifying power. As his strike shot out, it turned into a primordial great beast. "Go!" Bewitching Maiden Row moved. She waved her slender hand, which looked like it was made from jade, but that primordial great beast was instantly shattered upon contact. It could not even withstand a single blow. Luan Sang couldn't help but feel greatly shocked. He had always had a very high opinion of himself and thought, what other more outstanding prodigy could there be aside from himself in this world? But the flame of life burning in bewitching Maiden Row looked like it had only been burning for several million years. How could she be stronger than him? When they were of the same cultivation level, he should be the strongest. Actually, bewitching Maiden Row had still reserved some power. Though she had not recovered the cultivation level that she should have had at the ascending origin tier, she had already returned to 5th secret immortal palace tier, and added with how she had refined some source power, she actually already possessed a portion of the might of the ascending origin tier. Luan Sang was not an 11th secret monarch star, either, but rather just a 3rd secret emperor tier. He was completely someone that the bewitching Maiden Row could insta-kill. His heart was apprehensive, and he couldn't help but ask, "Just who exactly are you people?" "All right, no more jokes," Ling Han said, smiling. "This wife of mine also has the surname of Luan and belongs to your line of the Nine-Snake tribe. We initially planned to return to the ancestral grounds to pay our respects, but we did not expect that we would still be able to actually encounter her clansmen." "This," Luan Sang looked towards the Empress and paused. "Since you belong to the bloodline of our Nine-Snake tribe, you should possess the mystical power of our bloodline, correct?" Actually, the Empress could not even be bothered to recognize these clansmen of hers. With how proud she was, she thought she was ruler of the entire world. Aside from Ling Han, everyone else should bow down to worship her. However, Ling Han thought that she should still recognize them, so she reluctantly agreed. With a thought, her 9 doppelgangers appeared. Luan Sang was moved. The line of the Nine-Snake tribe could form their own doppelgangers. This was a unique ability that belonged solely to them, but because of the purity of bloodline, some clansmen could manifest 5 or 6 doppelgangers, while others could only manifest 1 or 2. Someone who could manifest 9 like the Empress was indeed very, very rare. There were merely 2 that possessed this ability in the entire Nine-Snake tribe now. "So we are a family." Luan Sang nodded, a smile appearing on his face. Come. Everyone, please follow me. The ancestor will definitely be extremely pleased." He made an inviting gesture, and then led the way in front of them. Ling Han smiled and followed his lead, with the Empress and the other women in tow. Meanwhile, Wan Tianjun was extremely depressed. The Empress had slapped him, which was a great humiliation in his eyes, but it looked like he would not be able to get his revenge for this. The Empress had 9 doppelgangers, and this was a proof of the purest bloodline of the Nine-Snake tribe. The ancestor would definitely value this incredibly and treasure her highly, so how could he possibly get his chance for revenge? With Luan Sang leading the way, Ling Han and the others ascended the mountain. Actually, it only had the height of about 3 kilometers. Very soon, they arrived at the summit. This broken peak was unusually flat, and it could practically claim to be as smooth as a mirror. Perhaps an elite had cut it with a divine sword all those years ago, and that was why the broken peak appeared so smooth and even. Ling Han sent out a strike with a finger, testing the toughness of this rock. Wong, seals actually flashed on the mountain, though they were broken seals. Very quickly, they dimmed again, but they still completely eliminated the force of Ling Han's strike. Luan Sang couldn't help but explain proudly, "This is the ancestral grounds of our nine-snake tribe, and has been refined through a supreme secret technique by an ancestor many years ago. It is comparable to a celestial tool." Ling Han only responded with a smile, though he was shaking his head internally. It looked like the members of the Luan clan were still living in the remaining shadow of their ancestor. They kept talking about the nine-snake tribe and how great their celestial king had been all those years ago, yet did not even think about how they had already lost the protection of a celestial king long ago. Where did they still get this feeling of superiority from? This mountain was indeed very tough, but it was only that. Otherwise, it would not have been cut in half in the past. Seeing the lack of concern in Ling Han's expression, Luan Sang couldn't help but humph internally as his animosity increased even further. Chapter 2379, Returning to the Family Line. Chapter 2379, Returning to the Family Line. The broken mountain had been reasonably made use of, with multiple palace halls built on it, making it seem very luxurious and magnificent. Ling Han shook his head internally. This broken mountain should be the source of humiliation for the nine-snake tribe, and should be eternally carved into their memories. Yet now there was a false facade of peace. Just what were these descendants thinking? It was like Luan Sang, Luan Tianjun, and the others did not remember at all how their celestial king ancestor had been killed, so they did not feel the slightest sense of shame, and only felt great pride due to being the descendant of a celestial king. There were really a considerable number of people here. When they saw how many there were in Ling Han's group, they all ran out to watch them as they proceeded. The attractiveness of this tribe was really very high. The men were all handsome and the women were beautiful, which was a pleasing sight to the eye. When someone asked about who Ling Han and his group were, Luan Sang offered a simple explanation. When they knew that such a supremely exquisite woman like the Empress was actually a member of their clan, the people around all looked proud, as if their only concern was external appearance, and all other matters like strength and cultivation level could be set aside for the moment. "Please wait a while," Luan Sang said as he turned to them after he led them to stand in front of a palace hall. Next, he walked into the palace hall. A while later, he walked out, wearing a reserved smile. "Ancestor has summoned you." This declining tribe really had great airs. For the sake of the Empress, Ling Han did not show any temper and merely responded with a slight smile. The Empress, on the other hand, showed a hint of displeasure, her expression slightly icy. They entered the palace hall. The inside was furnished very magnificently, with the furs of various immortal beasts covering the floor, while precious gems were embedded in the stone pillars, illuminating the entire great hall. They walked all the way to the other end of the great hall. There were various young people seated on either side, and they were all in deep focus, while chanting was presently reciting teachings, calming the heart and spirit, and resonating with heavenly Tao. "Ancestor is teaching," Luan Sang said with slight reservedness, but the pride in his expression could not be concealed. "Ancestor is at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. Furthermore, he is just a single step away from the celestial king tier. When the celestial path opens, Ancestor will definitely manage to become a celestial king. A celestial king with a lofty, noble status, which no one else could compare to." Ling Han really could not bear to see the sense of superiority these people had. He hadn't become a celestial king yet, right? So why were they so smug? "Come." Luan Sang led the way ahead, bringing them into the depths of the great hall. A man was seated in a lofty position there. He was an elder with a tall, lanky frame, dressed in white robes and exuding a sagely air. Seal after seal was spat from his mouth, turning into lotus flowers which fluttered around the surroundings and sank into the foreheads of the young people in the great hall respectively. He was teaching by example. "Greetings, ancestor." When Luan Sang had come close enough, he bowed down respectfully, a heated look in his eyes. This was the strongest elite of the Nine-Snake tribe, as well as their pillar, an existence that would definitely become a celestial king in the future. The white-robed elder's eyes opened, and his eyes passed over Ling Han and his group. When he spotted the Empress, his eyes shone brilliantly, and then he nodded. "Very good, very good. Another descendant with a pure bloodline has emerged from our bloodline. This is a sign that we are blessed by the heavens." Even as he spoke, the lotus flowers of great Tao that were coming from his mouth did not end. Multitasking was naturally no big deal for an ascending origin tier elite. Luan Sang turned his head and couldn't help but frown. He shouted, "You actually do not kneel when meeting ancestor?" However, the white-robed elder laughed and waved a hand dismissively. "She has not returned to the line and acknowledged her ancestors yet. There's no need to rush things. As for the others, they were all outsiders. Even if they wanted to bow to him, they were not worthy." "Child, what is your name?" he asked again, very concerned about the Empress. The Empress scoffed. "Just who do you think you are? I have to answer any question you ask?" Luan Xing. Yet Ling Han smiled and answered on her behalf. He wanted to see just how arrogant this tribe had become, and exactly why would they have such an astonishing superiority complex. "What is your cultivation level?" the white-robed elder asked, slightly hesitant. With his insight as a consummate level ascending origin tier, he should be able to tell the Empress's cultivation level with a single look. Otherwise, it would mean that the latter's cultivation level was at the same level as his. He naturally could not believe this. The Empress's flame of life had only been burning for several million years, not even comparing to the scraps of his age. "Immortal Palace tier," Ling Han answered simply. The white-robed elder's eyes involuntarily lit up. Possessing the purest bloodline of the Nine-Snake tribe and attaining Immortal Palace tier when she was only several million years old? This kind of aptitude was truly amazing. He laughed loudly. "Good, good, good. Good child." The elder began to talk, mainly about how he was going to gather the Nine-Snake tribe again, raising himself to a very high position, which Ling Han mocked endlessly in his heart. From the look of things, the Empress's prideful character was really not unique, but rather a common ailment of this entire tribe. After talking for a long time, he finally commanded Luan Sang to bring the Empress and the others to rest as he would hold a ceremony for the Empress to acknowledge her ancestors after selecting an auspicious day. Though the Empress was disdainful, she did not say anything. In the first place, she was a descendant of the Nine-Snake tribe, so what need was there for her to return to the line and acknowledge her ancestors? Could it be that she would not be a member of the Nine-Snake tribe without this ceremony? Moreover, she did not have any sense of association with these clansmen. Why was it she was the one required to acknowledge her ancestors? In the eyes of someone as proud as she was, it should be these people that should be acknowledging her instead. Ling Han merely wrapped an arm around her waist, subtly indicating the Empress to keep calm and not to be impatient. After all, these people were her family. He wanted the Empress to have her own family, though relatives like them could only be considered the most distant of relatives. With Luan Sang's arrangements, they were led into a palace hall and settled down there. A clanswoman who had 9 doppelgangers had returned, and one that had even reached the height of Immortal Palace tier at that. For the Nine-Snake tribe, this was a serious matter. After all, they were no longer the Celestial King tier force they had once been. Even the strongest among them was only at the Ascending Origin tier, and there was only a single one at that. Hence, this ceremony would be greatly and elaborately conducted. Meanwhile, the Empress brought Ling Han and the others around. She was looking for the lost inheritance of this tribe so that she could complete her bloodline. Previously, she had absorbed the divine fetus of Gu Dawi and had also obtained a portion of his memories, so she knew where he had obtained this inheritance from. Thus, she soon found an underground palace, but it was guarded, and others were forbidden from entering. At first, the Empress was going to flip out, but Ling Han persuaded her otherwise. After acknowledging her ancestors, the Empress naturally could enter this place, and there was no need to become hostile now. Of course, Ling Han was not afraid of the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe. He only thought that these were the only family members left to the Empress. The Empress considered for a moment and let the matter go. She only went on a scenic tour with Ling Han and the others while cultivating the regulations of the celestial realm. Once it was time, she would be able to break through naturally and return to the ascending origin tier. Because the ceremony was going to be elaborately held, the Nine-Snake tribe had also invited a great many guests. The island had become more and more lively throughout the last few days. The Empress was exquisite beyond compare, which naturally attracted the eyes of countless. There were some young prodigies within the clan, as well as guests from outside the clan among them. However, this was the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe, after all, and the Empress was a rising star of the clan, so no one made any inappropriate actions. Another 10 days later, the ceremony for acknowledging ancestors was held officially. Everything was going smoothly, but just as the ceremony was drawing to a close, a young man suddenly leaped out and demanded with great displeasure, "Lord Gue, didn't you say that the person you betrothed to me is the most beautiful in your clan?" He paused and pointed at the Empress. "Have you all gone blind? I want this one." Chapter 2380, Kong Clan. Chapter 2380, Kong Clan. When the young man jumped out, it was equivalent to having thrown a large rock into a peaceful pool of water, instantly causing a great commotion. Who is this brat? I can tell that he is only a severing mundane tier, so how can he act so arrogant? That's right. He actually dares to call himself a young master in front of the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe. He really is secure, knowing that he has backing. Where has he popped out from? Hush, could it be that you guys do not know of the Kong clan? Hiss, the Kong clan of Three Cloud City? Che, aside from the Kong clan of the Three Cloud City, what other clan with the surname of Kong would dare call themselves the Kong clan? Kong clan is one of the well-known clans of a 4-star force. It is rumored that their ascending origin tier elites number in the hundreds. They have all emerged in the last few billion years, and are all waiting for the celestial path to open. And once they walk the celestial path, the Kong clan would have 5 celestial kings at least. Even a considerable number of great sects cannot compare to this, right? To have 5 celestial kings emerge at the same time, this is practically the stuff of fantasies. Could it be that this brat is a descendant of the Kong clan? His name is Kong Shuang, and he is also part of the main line of the Kong clan. It is said that for the sake of obtaining this betrothal, the Nine-Snake tribe not only approached them of their own volition, but also paid a great price for it. If it was me, and I could become in-laws with the Kong clan, I would spare no expense either. No wonder this brat dares to be so arrogant. Still, to flip out in public like this, he is absolutely spoiled rotten. It can't be helped. Who asked him to be a son of the Kong clan? Everyone chattered back and forth. It was like they were telling a story as they gave a clear explanation of the origins of this young man. Ling Han gave an "oh." As it turned out, this Kong Shuang had a betrothal contact with the Nine-Snake tribe, but when he saw how the Empress was more beautiful, he was immediately dissatisfied with his betrothed. "Kong Shuang, where do you think this is? Do not spout nonsense." The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe exclaimed in displeasure. No matter how much he wanted to become in-laws with the Kong clan, there was no way he would allow a junior to point a finger at his nose and shout at him. Yet Kong Shuang was used to being spoiled and did not have any fear at all. Raising his head high, he demanded, "I want this woman to be my wife." He looked at the Empress, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. The Empress flew into a thunderous rage, but had not flipped out yet when Ling Han held her back, leaning close to her ear, and said, "Let's just see how your family will deal with this matter." If the Nine-Snake tribe could fully defend the Empress, he would also consider the Nine-Snake tribe his own family as well. With the ability of someone who was about to step into the level of a 5-star alchemist, it was really a small matter for him to help a clan prosper again. But if the Nine-Snake tribe would only push the Empress out to resolve the matter, the Nine-Snake tribe would only be strangers to him. In fact, it was possible that he would erase them on a whim. The Empress nodded, and because Ling Han was too close to her, his warm breath was felt on her neck, causing a faint flush to rise up on her jade-like complexion and increasing her exquisiteness even more. Kong Shuang was naturally drooling even more, wanting nothing more than to immediately snatch the Empress over. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe released his aura, which suppressed Kong Shuang, and did not allow him to continue shouting so that the ceremony could be completed successfully. Kong Shuang left on the day itself. "Ancestor, I will go and snipe him." In the Great Hall, someone asked for instructions from the ancestor. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe thought for a short while and then nodded. "Make it clean. Don't leave behind any clues." When this boy returned, he would definitely tell tales, and rather than allowing things to progress to the extent when the matter could not be easily resolved, it would be better to kill him directly. None of these people were the type to be generous and kind. Understood. This man left quietly, but not long after, he returned and reported, "Ancestor, I did not manage to catch up with Kong Shuang. He used a precious tool, which was astonishingly fast." The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe frowned. "Has he discovered you?" "No," the person hurriedly replied. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe nodded, his frown relaxing. It was fine as long as he was not discovered, or the matter would really become a huge mess. Counter soldiers with arms, and water with an earthware then. Now that the Empress had returned to the Nine-Snake tribe, she had naturally gained approval to enter into the underground palace hall. The ultimate inheritance of the Nine-Snake tribe lay there, and after maturity, every clan member had to stay there for a period of time so that they could advance their physique. Merely a day later, the Empress had come out, causing everyone in the Nine-Snake tribe to feel very disappointed. Because normally the stronger the bloodline, the longer she could stay in the underground palace, and only then would the physique she cultivated be stronger. But the Empress only stayed there for a single day, which was less than even the weakest person of their clan. Could it be that her 9 doppelgangers and the cultivation level of a mortal palace tier were all lies? These rumors immediately arose within the clan. It was truly hard to believe that she had actually come out after only a single day with the bloodline that could form 9 doppelgangers. It should be known that one of the 2 other clan members that had the bloodline of 9 doppelgangers stayed for 49 days, while the other stayed for 47 days. In comparison, the Empress was practically trash. The resolve of the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe wavered at this. Should they give up this member of their clan? If the Empress had incomparable aptitude, then for the sake of the future of the Nine-Snake tribe, he would definitely protect the Empress to his full efforts. But if the Empress was just an idiot, then the only use for her was as a bargaining chip to be offered in an alliance through marriage. And under such circumstances, someone came from the Kong clan. They put on great airs. 3 ascending origin tier elites led the group, and this was enough to raise the Nine-Snake tribe to the ground. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe did not dare to be careless, and entertained the 3 of them in the Great Hall. Furthermore, the Empress had also been summoned. After all, she was an involved party. Ling Han accompanied her, while the other women stayed behind in their quarters. Only 4 people had come from the Kong clan, and the last member of the group was Kong clan. But the arrangement of having 3 great ascending origin tier elites in the group was very, very shocking. "Brothers Kong, please." The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe raised his wine cup, offering a toast to the 3 ascending origin tier elites of the Kong clan. These 3 ascending origin tiers from the Kong clan were Kong Un, Kong Lu, and Kong Yi. They were all at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier, so they were putting on a lot of airs. They were sure that once the celestial path was open, they would be able to become celestial kings. The trio raised their cups reservedly, but they only touched the rim of the cup at their lips slightly, and that was it. "Brother Luan Gue, I have to say that you have not been very conscientious in this matter." Kong Un was the first to raise difficult questions. "Why do you say this?" the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe asked smilingly. "When you formed an alliance of marriage with our Kong clan, you said you would offer the most beautiful pearl of your clan, but according to Schwanger, that is not the case at all," Kong stated evenly, and then his eyes turned harsh as he glared at the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe. Are you playing around with our Kong clan? Immediately, a sense of displeasure rose up in the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe. For better or worse, he was also an ascending origin tier, and was at the consummate level as well. He was just short of the celestial path to becoming a celestial king himself. Of course, the majority of ascending origin tiers would ultimately die of old age at this level, and would never be able to cross this threshold. However, the Kong clan had sent 3 consummate level ascending origin tiers, clearly meaning to intimidate him. A little impatience would spoil great plans, he thought, and then spoke. Luan Xing has only returned to our clan not too long ago, so it was not a deliberate deception on my part. Kong Shuang leaped out, pointed at the Empress, and called out, "That's all right, then. You can just marry her to me." Kong In and the others were all rubbing their beards and smiling, with absolutely no intentions of reprimanding him. Initially, this was absolutely not a situation in which a mere severing mundane tier would be allowed to interrupt, yet they did not reprimand him. This was spoiling him too much. Ling Han stood up first, and did not allow the Empress to flip out first. It was naturally the man that had to step out in this kind of situation. He strode over to Kong Shuang, a faint smile on his face. "You are quite brave that you dare to even think of my wife. Very soon, she will no longer be your wife," Kong Shuang declared disdainfully. "You will only be a dead man." Ling Han reached him and sent out a palm strike. Pa, and Kong Shuang was immediately turned into a mess of blood and flesh. Chapter 2381. Smacked to Death. Chapter 2381. Smacked to Death. This slap was too quick. To say nothing of the fact that Kong Shuang could not dodge in time at all. Even Kong In and the others did not manage to stop Ling Han in time, and could only watch helplessly as Kong Shuang was turned into a shower of blood. Blood sprayed and spurted on them, but their defensive power was automatically activated and blocked the blood spray, so none of it touched them. The 3 elites first felt disbelief, but it was quickly followed by thunderous fury as they also felt an indescribable embarrassment. With who they were and how strong they were, they actually allowed Ling Han to kill someone right in front of their eyes. How could they possibly tolerate that? "Whoever you are, your only destined path is death," Kong In declared coldly. "You will be hung on the city gates of 3 Cloud City and suffer 1,000,000 years of torture." Kong Lu continued. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe hesitated slightly and then stood up as well. "Brothers Kong, this boy has nothing to do with our clan." He hurriedly drew a clear dividing line between Ling Han and their clan. "Hee, just because you say he has nothing to do with your clan, he truly is unrelated?" Kong Yi demanded menacingly. Usually, it would only be the Kong clan that would be bullying others. When would it ever be someone else that was bullying them instead? Not only would Ling Han have to die, the Luan clan would also have to pay an enormous price, or everyone would think that the Kong clan was an easy target for bullies. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe had a grim expression. He had always had a high opinion of himself. As he was someone who possessed the bloodline of a celestial king, his strength would definitely be stronger than the usual ascending origin tiers. Hence, even in a battle of 1 against 3, he still had the confidence that he would not lose. But the Kong clan has practically been blessed by the heavens. The ascending origin tier elites in the clan actually numbered in the hundreds. If they were mobilized all at once, no matter how strong he was, he would still only be able to bow down in submission. Hence, he presently hated Ling Han to death. Killing a severing mundane tier naturally was just a small matter, but the crux of the matter was just how much trouble would be incited after killing him. Luan Sang discerned his thoughts from his body language and immediately jumped out, exclaiming, "Ling Han, you actually dare to commit a crime in the ancestral grounds of our Nine-Snake tribe. Your sin deserves 10,000 deaths." He took the initiative to move, launching an attack on Ling Han. The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe nodded secretly. This clan member was really clever. The former had indeed not doted on him for nothing. "Pa!" The Empress moved and sent out a palm strike. Instantly, Luan Sang was turned into a shower of blood. She was presently an 11th secret monarch star and had also developed some source power, So her battle prowess had attained the peak stage of small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier, and was even slightly stronger than that. It was naturally just a small gesture for her to smack a third secret emperor tier to death. Holy fuck. The ancestor of the nine-snake tribe gaped, soundlessly mouthing these words. Because he had not been able to discern the Empress's cultivation level, added with how the Empress had only stayed in the underground palace for a day, he had gotten some ideas, and thought that it was extremely possible that the Empress had lied about her cultivation level. But once the Empress made her move, it was world-shaking. The aura of her cultivation level was indeed only a mortal palace tier, but the strength of her battle prowess had spiked all the way to the ascending origin tier. This was too terrifying. How could an immortal palace tier possibly possess ascending origin tier's battle prowess? He had been too closed off, and had absolutely no idea that there were emperor tiers and monarch stars in this world. So he could not imagine how a mere immortal palace tier would actually be able to match ascending origin tier at all. If he had known early on how powerful the Empress was, he should have spared no expense to protect her. Fuck, with such outstanding talent, why had she stayed for only a day in the underground palace? He naturally could not possibly know that the Empress had cultivated a celestial physique of time. In the first place, this physique was supreme in the entire celestial realm. Additionally, she herself was also equivalent to the flow of time. In the eyes of others, it might only have been a single day, but in truth, she was the only one who could know just how many days had passed. Kong An's expression was icy. Why was this couple both so strange? They clearly were exuding an aura that was only at the immortal palace tier, yet had such astonishing battle prowess. You do indeed have some strength. No wonder you dared to commit an outrage. He sneered, his heart already calmed. He merely could not understand why they, being only in the immortal palace tier, could have ascending origin tier's battle prowess, but whether it was Ling Han or the Empress, the battle prowess they both exhibited was only small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier. Compared to him, they were still very, very far off. What did he need to fear? Take them down. He moved aggressively, grabbing out at Ling Han, and Kong Lu moved as well, launching an assault on the Empress. Ling Han smiled calmly, clenching his right hand into a fist. Without using any power of regulation, he just sent out a very ordinary, average punch. You are seeking death. Kong and smirked Cody. Without using the power of regulation, you dare to clash with me? You only have the battle prowess of small accomplishment level of the ascending origin tier. Even if you unleash all that completely, that is still far from being a match for me. What else could this be but seeking death? He did not want Ling Han to die so easily, so he reserved a portion of his power to avoid landing too strong a blow that would kill Ling Han immediately. On the other side, the Empress did not dare to face consummate-level ascending origin tier battle prowess head-on. She turned into the flow of time. It seemed like she was in the present, but also in the past, and in a blur seemed to be the future, all at the same time. Aside from celestial kings that had grasped the essence of the regulations of time, who else could wound her? Pong! Liao Kong and Kong An exchanged a blow, and it was visibly Kong An's fist that exploded first, and then his arm exploded with flesh and blood, just like an umbrella that had been opened, revealing eerily white bone. Then the bone, too, shattered suddenly, and his whole arm was gone. Seeing this scene, everyone was gaping in shock, their scalps completely numb. This was too terrifying. This was a consummate-level ascending origin tier, and his arm had actually been obliterated with a single punch. Could it be that their previous knowledge was all mistaken? It was the ascending origin tier that was actually the third rung on the ladder of the celestial path, and the immortal palace tier was actually superior. Seeing how Kong An had been defeated with a single strike, Kong Lun naturally was in no mood to attack the Empress further. In truth, he, too, could do nothing against her. The three members of the Kong clan all set their eyes on Ling Han, thinking that this young man was practically like a demon, and the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe was also trembling. He had only thought that he had mistakenly judged the Empress. He had not imagined that his biggest mistake was underestimating Ling Han. He had seriously underestimated him. Though he was confident that his strength was superior to that of Kong En and the others, it was still absolutely impossible for him to pulverize one of Kong An's arms with a single punch. Even he was terrified by this kind of battle prowess. Ling Han smiled slightly. Now that I have helped you teach a lesson to an unruly junior, are you really all so ungrateful? You have killed a junior of our clan, and actually want us to thank you for it? Kong En and the others were outraged, but faced with Ling Han's inconceivable strength, they could only swallow their anger and suffer the humiliation. Sir, thank you for moving to help dispose of the dregs of our clan, Kong Yi forced out through gritted teeth, feeling like his heart was bleeding. This was an extraordinary humiliation. Ling Han nodded and said, You guys would not be so shameless to ask that I move for free, right? You don't have to pay too much, just give me a red packet one. The three members from the Kong clan wanted nothing more than to have a life and death struggle with Ling Han. He had gone too far. Not only had he killed a member of the Kong clan and wounded an elite of the Kong clan, he actually was asking them for a red packet now. What an intolerable bully. But that amazing strength of Ling Han was clear to see, intimidating them to the point that they could only keep to their best behavior. After a moment's discussion, they took out a spatial god tool which they tossed over to Ling Han. Kong En said, Sir, can we take our leave now? Ling Han asked lazily, Was there anyone that was stopping you? The three of them glared hard at Ling Han. They would definitely return and get their vengeance. No matter how strong Ling Han was, he was only a single person, and the Kong clan had over 100 ascending origin tier elites. The majority of them were already at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier, and had the potential to advance to the celestial king tier. With so many of them against him, how could he possibly not be suppressed? The three members of the Kong clan left in dejection, leaving behind the members of the Luan clan that were greatly stunned. Let's go. Ling Han wrapped an arm gently around the Empress's waist. The Empress nodded, without the slightest reluctance. For her, this clan only consisted of a great number of strangers. Wait, the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe called out hurriedly. Chapter 2382. A person hung on the flagpole. Chapter 2382. A person hung on the flagpole. Ling Han stopped, turned back round with a smile, and asked, What is it? You want to spar with us? How could the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe dare? Hurriedly, he smiled and said, Don't misunderstand. Don't misunderstand. Luan Xing is one of our clan members. After all, she has just acknowledged her ancestors and returned to her clan, so it would be better that she stays for a few days longer in the clan. Whether it was Ling Han or the Empress, they were both unbelievably freakish. If they could stay in the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe, that would be equivalent to having gained a powerful backer. Ling Han shook his head with a smile. Old man, don't you think it's a little late to say this now? If the ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe had resolutely maintained his stand previously, Ling Han would not have let them go to so much trouble for nothing either. But then what? He had not done anything, and had wanted to detach himself from the matter completely, yet now wanted to take advantage of them. How could there be such a good thing in this world? The ancestor of the Nine-Snake tribe couldn't help but look embarrassed, yet he could say nothing to refute. He could only shake his head sheepishly. Ling Han and the Empress called the other women over, left the ancestral grounds of the Nine-Snake tribe, and then headed towards Three Cloud City. Since they had already formed a grudge with the Kong clan, Ling Han would settle the matter once and for all. Furthermore, he was also very curious about how over 100 ascending origin tiers had emerged from the Kong clan all at once. This was very inconceivable. The ascending origin tier was actually already very awesome. It was the strongest beneath the celestial king tier, and to have so many ascending origin tiers surge forth all at once without the support of a celestial king was very illogical. Ling Han and his group did not travel very quickly. Roaming and traveling, they reached the Three Cloud City. Before even entering the city, they could see a flagpole that was stuck in front of the city gates, but there was no flag hanging from it. Instead, it was a person. This person's limbs were drooping, and they were twisted at an unusual angle at that. It seemed like it should be a corpse, But Ling Han could sense that there was actually a weak fluttering of divine sense from this person. This clearly was not a provoking action done by some opposing force of Three Cloud City, but rather a certain force in Three Cloud City exhibiting their power and making an example. Thinking further, there was only one most powerful force in Three Cloud City, and that was the Kong clan. This person should have committed an offense against the Kong clan, and that was why he had been hung on this flagpole. Yet he had not been killed, but rather left to survive on his last breath. The purpose of this was to serve as a warning for others that they should never become enemies with the Kong clan, or becoming this person would be their future. Ling Han was just about to take a step and continue onwards, but then suddenly stopped and turned to look at that flagpole again. He sensed that there was something familiar about this person. It was not appearance, but rather divine sense. Who could it be? What is it? The Empress asked. Ling Han was still looking at the person hanging from the flagpole and asked, "Don't you guys think that we seem to have met this person before?" The Empress studied him carefully and then shook her head. With her incredibly proud personality, how could she possibly bother to remember people she had met? Understanding suddenly flashed in Ling Han's head, and he exclaimed, "I remember now." When his words fell, he immediately waved a hand. A powerful gust of air swept out, and the ropes that were tied around that person split apart. Instantly, that person fell towards the ground. Ling Han stretched his hand again, picked the person up, and then laid him evenly on the ground. "How dare you?" There were guards at the city entrance, and when they saw how Ling Han actually dared to rescue him, they were instantly enraged. They all rushed over. There were only 8 of them at the city entrance, but with a series of shouts, another team of guards rushed out. There were more than 30 of them now. Ling Han ignored them, and instead placed a palm on the shoulder of that person. As regulations of Wood activated, filled with vitality, that man's injuries were being healed. He frowned slightly. The Kong clan were really ruthless in their actions. They had first caged this person's power, and then planted some kind of secret technique which was devouring this person's vitality, causing incredible agony for him. Yet this person could not die in the short term, and it would last at least tens of thousands of years. What grudge or enmity was there between them that they had to go to such cruel lengths? "I was talking to you," a guard shouted. Brandishing the spear in his hands, he stabbed it towards Ling Han's shoulder. Hunyo abruptly roared, which turned into a deafening dragon's roar. Pa! The spear in the hands of that guard was instantly shattered. Even the space between his thumb and forefinger split apart. Releasing a pained cry, he slid back continuously. The guards immediately looked like they were facing a powerful enemy as they all raised their weapons, aiming straight at Hunyo. Hunyo naturally would not be concerned. Instead, she giggled and said, "Whichever of you are feeling an itch, Nyo will come to deal with you." Ling Han stimulated the regulations of Wood, helping the wounded man heal. He had previously possessed the source powers of heaven and earth. Though he had given them up of his own volition, they had still left a brand behind on him. This naturally was extremely powerful, and the secret technique in that person's body was also being erased bit by bit. Because he could not injure this person, Ling Han progressed at a very slow speed. Fortunately, he stimulated the regulations of time, and time acceleration effects immediately took place. In only over a dozen minutes, the secret technique in that person's body was already unraveled, and with the nurturing and revitalizing effects of the regulations of Wood, the person also recovered considerably. His eyelids trembled slightly, and then snapped open. "Fuck. Indeed, never anything good happens when I see you, brat," the person said. Ling Han laughed loudly. "I have saved your life, and you're not even going to say thanks?" This person was the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire. In the past, he had set out on his own the moment they had entered into the celestial realm. He had not anticipated that they would reunite at this time and place, and that he would be so badly off to the point of almost dying. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire forcibly sat up, and looking at the surroundings, he couldn't help but frown. "Not good. This is still Three Cloud City. Let's go. Once the Kong clan rushes out, we will be in big trouble." "It's fine. If we are really caught up with by your enemies, I will hand you over to them. In any case, it has nothing to do with me, Ling Han joked. Humph, it is already too late for you to know fear now. A cold laugh rang out, and a young man was seen walking out of the city. He was dressed in rich robes, and actually even held a folded paper fan in his hand. He was waving the fan with every step, very much a show-off. Ling Han ignored him and asked, "So you have a grudge with the Kong clan? Great. I too want to seek them out, so we'll clear your debt as well while I'm at it." No. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire hurriedly shook his head. Though your natural talent in cultivation is extraordinary, that is only limited to the ancient realm. Once we have entered into the celestial realm, there are many, many other more outstanding prodigies than you hear. The Kong clan has over 100 ascending origin tiers, and you have only cultivated for several million years. How could you be a match for them? Even if it was he who was recultivating from the beginning, he had just advanced into the immortal palace tier now. The gap was astonishingly wide. Even he was this way, what more when it was Ling Han? Ling Han put on an act of displeasure and demanded, "Are you looking down on me? Fuck, let's flee quickly. Anything else, we can talk later." The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire urged. He had no wish to hang on the flagpole again. "Wanna flee?" The young man in embroidered robes smirked coldly. His nostrils were spurting flames in his fury. Not a single member of Ling Han and his group actually gave him any regard, and they were still openly and brazenly talking about fleeing. Did they think he was dead? "Anyone who becomes enemies with our Kong clan will never have long to live," he declared menacingly. "And who are you?" Ling Han asked. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire couldn't help but moan. There was such a wonderful chance for them to run, which Ling Han was not using, but was actually spending it on bickering. The young man in embroidered robes humphed and declared, "I am Kong Xiang." He paused, swept a glance over Ling Han and his group, and then demanded proudly, "If you kneel down now and beg for mercy, I can consider sparing your lives." Ling Han laughed, turned his head, and commented, "I discover that the members of the Kong clan really have a natural talent at jokes." The women also gave him face by laughing lightly. Kong Xiang was enraged. He drew a long spear and suddenly rushed towards Ling Han rapidly. He delivered a sweeping strike with his spear, which exuded formidable might. Chapter 2383, Reason for the Calamity. Chapter 2383, Reason for the Calamity. In the younger generation of the Kong clan, Kong Xiang's natural talent was not too weak. Though he had only been cultivating for just over 100,000 years, he was shockingly already a fourth severance. This spear was extremely frightening. As the seals lit up one after another, it seemed capable of toppling mountains and overturning seas. Ling Han blew out a breath of air, and a gust of wind surged out. Kong Xiang's charge immediately came to an abrupt stop. His whole person seemed like he was in slow motion. He was taking steps with great difficulty, and the clothing that he was wearing was also torn to shreds by the terrifying force of the gust, instantly turning him naked. As the gust swept past, Kong Xiang suddenly stumbled, almost dropping onto the ground. When he discovered the embarrassing state he was in, he hurriedly moved to cover the spot between his legs, but when he realized that even if he had managed to cover the front, there was nothing covering his back, his grip on the spear couldn't help but loosen as he used the other hand to cover his behind. His face was completely flushed red, and he felt that Ling Han was really too immoral to actually use such an underhanded trick. He was too shameless. Ling Han laughed loudly. "No need to cover it. It's not that much bigger than an ant, so there is no need to worry that it would be seen at all." Why you?" Kong Xiang pointed his finger at Ling Han, but when he pointed, he realized that he was about to reveal himself again. Quickly, he withdrew his hand, his face bright red as he wanted nothing more than for there to be a hole in the ground where he could bury himself in. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire sighed and said, "Ling Han, this person is only a fourth severance, but the Kong clan has many elites, so run faster. Will you do it if I call you Big Brother?" I am your big brother in the first place. Ling Han grinned. He clapped a hand on the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire's shoulder. Don't worry. Big brother will protect you. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire was depressed. I have already warned you. If you are captured, hung up, and beaten, don't say I didn't warn you. Didn't I say that I would hand you over if I was outmatched? Ling Han began to tease him again. Scram! The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire rolled his eyes at him. Kong Xiang quickly took out clothing from his spatial god tool, which he changed into, and breathed a sigh of relief. He picked up his spear again as he glared furiously at Ling Han. If eyes could kill, Ling Han should have died countless times over. He did not dare to make any further moves rashly. Though Ling Han had not revealed his strength previously, Kong Xiang had been forced to a stop with just a breath of air from the former, and it even tore his clothes to shreds. This strength was definitely superior to his, and it was not just by a little bit, either. It should be known that the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire was an immortal palace-tier, so based on the fact that Ling Han could be friends with him, he, too, should be an immortal palace-tier as well. Losing at the hand of someone like this, there was no need for him to feel ashamed. As he sent out a signal for reinforcements, he kept his eyes on Ling Han and demanded, "Who are you? To dare trifle with our Kong clan, do you dare to announce your name?" Ling Han smiled faintly. Originally, a minor character like you would not be worthy of talking to me, but who asked that I am not the type to put on any airs? My name is Ba. Ba. Kong Xiang mumbled as he searched through his knowledge to see if there was someone who matched that name. Yes, good son. Ling Han nodded. Fuck. He had been tricked. Kong Xiang glared at Ling Han furiously, and even his hair stood on ends. He felt that Ling Han was really too despicable. He was clearly an immortal palace-tier, yet had actually taken advantage of him, a mere fourth severance, repeatedly. How could he do that? Just how did you make enemies of the Kong clan? Ling Han paid no further regard to Kong Xiang. There was really no need for him to take such a minor character to heart. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire was glum. Could you find a different time and place to ask this question, you curious brat? I've already told you that we need to flee. We need to flee. Why do you not listen at all? Remember how I was hunted and forced to flee into the lower realm? He still explained, or he would feel uncomfortable. Ling Han gave an "oh." It has something to do with the Kong clan. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire nodded. That was a matter of several 100 million years ago. I obtained a treasure map, yet the ancestor of the Kong clan got wind of it and thus pursued me. Though I managed to fortunately escape with my life, the treasure map still fell into the hands of the ancestor of the Kong clan. This could be imagined. In the past, when the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire fled into the lower realm, he was only left with a sliver of divine sense. A great immortal palace-tier elite actually needed the lower realm to help him gather materials to rebuild his body, which showed how miserable he had once been. The treasure map being snatched away was also within reason. Then the reason why you have come here was to take back your treasure map? Ling Han asked. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire shook his head. It's already been so many years, and the Kong clan must have taken out the treasure by now. Moreover, the Kong clan had previously just been an ordinary 4-star force, with only a single ascending origin tier, yet now there are as many as over 100 of them. He paused. This must be linked to that treasure trove. Ling Han agreed. If nothing unusual happened, how could an ordinary 4-star force possibly leap to the top tier with a single bound? A horse couldn't get fat without an extra ration, and a man couldn't get rich without an extra income. Furthermore, he was sure that the Kong clan would have obtained 1 to 2 celestial kings by now if it were not for the fact that it was required to walk the celestial path to become a celestial king. The treasure trove that they had obtained had really been useful. I am indeed dissatisfied, but I have not yet cultivated to the ascending origin tier, so I naturally could not have come to deliver myself to death. I merely wanted to observe the situation. However, I mistakenly befriended a vile character and leaked the secret of my identity. In the end, the Kong clan captured me, and I suffered great torture. I have already been hung up there for over 10,000 years. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire sighed, feeling a coldness from being unable to bring himself to look back on his past. It had been 10,000 years, and merely being hung on the flagpole, exposed to the elements, and being mocked and ridiculed was not something a proud prodigy could bear. What more when restrictions had been placed on him as he was constantly enduring a great agony? Ling Han gave an "oh." This Kong clan was truly cruel. They were truly the typical standard to kill others for the sake of treasure. But in the greater environment of the celestial realm, this kind of situation seemed to be commonplace, and most people would choose this course of action. Xiao, Xiao, Xiao. Another few figures appeared. The reinforcements from the Kong clan had arrived. This time, a few immortal palace tiers had arrived. Though they were strong, because Three Cloud City was really too big, the journey here would also require a long period of time. Even if they had gotten the news and set out immediately, it was only now that they finally reached their destination. 9th Elder, 11th Elder, 19th Elder. Kong Xiang quickly called out. As he saw so many elites come all at once, his confidence was immediately replenished. A middle-aged man's eyes swept over Ling Han's face as quick as lightning. It was like a bolt out of the blue, capable of causing blindness. He humphed heavily. Who are you, to actually dare interfere in the matters of our Kong clan? Can it be that I am just intervening because I can't bear the injustice? Ling Han smiled and pointed at himself. A real man does not change his name. My name is Ba. Ba. This middle-aged man was also duped. He murmured this word, mulling over this name. Good son. Ling Han nodded. Only now did the middle-aged man realize that he had been tricked. He couldn't help but fly into a rage, his expression darkening quickly. You actually dare to play such tricks in front of me? How preposterous. No need to waste words on him. Let's just take him down directly and hang them both at the city gates, another middle-aged man said. He was short in build, but his aura was considerably astonishing. He was like a wild beast, and one would feel a chill rise up from the bottom of one's heart with just a look from him. All right. The first middle-aged man nodded. He stretched out a hand to grab Ling Han, and this turned into a giant black-colored hand. The mystical power of a mortal palace tier blazed. This blow was extremely terrifying. He did not underestimate Ling Han, because based on Kong Xiang's report, Ling Han was definitely in the immortal palace tier. Chapter 2384, Recognized. Chapter 2384, Recognized. Ling Han smiled faintly before taking a small breath and exhaling. Raging wind instantly swept forth. However, the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire shook his head upon seeing this. His opponent was Kong Lingqi, a third secret immortal palace tier elite from the Kong clan. How could he be regarded as someone on the same level as Kong Xiang? Even the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire would have to unleash his full power against him. Otherwise, he would definitely be killed. Yet, Ling Han was simply blowing some air? What was this? Celestial wind? Meanwhile, Kong Lingqi was also infuriated. This brat actually dared to attack him with a breath? Why didn't he spew some hot air to blow himself to death? You're seeking death, he roared with a humph. He rapidly pressed down with his large hand, yearning not to only suppress Ling Han, but also to subject him to immense torture. Otherwise, he couldn't quell his anger. Whoosh! The wind howled, and a devastating power swept through the surroundings. Kong Lingqi's attack was utterly futile as it was immediately crushed into pieces, scattering with the wind. However, the wind didn't stop, and it continued to howl toward Kong Lingqi, causing him to sway. Thud, thud, thud. He retreated several steps, with his clothes all torn to shreds. He looked much like a fluttering butterfly. When the wind dispersed, it was clear that Kong Lingqi had suffered the same fate as Kong Lingqi was but naked. Tisk! Ling Han couldn't help but feel astonished. This was because Kong Lingqi was also smooth and bare down there. This wasn't an innate condition, but rather a result of external action. Fuck, he truly knows how to toy with them. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire and the remaining members of the Kong clan were all stupefied. With a single breath, Ling Han had actually repelled the attack of a third secret elite. Not only that, but he had even shredded his clothes. Just what kind of astounding power was this? Ascending Origin Tier! The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire exclaimed with a gulp. He was filled with shock and disbelief. Ling Han had actually ascended to the Ascending Origin Tier. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was still only at the Immortal Palace Tier. One had to realize that he was recultivating, so his cultivation speed should have been hundreds or even thousands of times quicker than Ling Han's, yet he was actually surpassed. No wonder Ling Han was brimming with confidence. As an Ascending Origin Tier elite facing off against a fellow Ascending Origin Tier elite, even if he were much weaker, he could still come and go as he pleased as long as he wasn't encircled. He could do as he pleased. He's only at the Immortal Palace Tier, so how in the world is he so powerful? The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was in a bad state right now, so it was understandable that his judgment would be off. However, the members of the Kong clan were fine, so their judgment naturally wouldn't be affected. They were all beside themselves with shock. Ling Han was clearly exuding the aura of an Immortal Palace Tier elite. They hurriedly sent another signal, asking for more reinforcements. Ling Clan smiled and said, "Since you're all calling me father, why don't you come over and pay your respects?" He plucked the members of the Kong clan up as if he were an eagle plucking at small chicks. He then forced them to kneel in a row before the city gates. At the end of the day, he was acquainted with the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire, while he only harbored disgust and contempt toward the Kong clan. Thus, since he was free anyway, he decided to vent some anger for the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire. "You're still only at the Immortal Palace Tier?" the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire exclaimed in astonishment. Ling Han pondered for a moment before replying, "It's hard for me to answer with a direct yes or no." The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire rolled his eyes upon hearing this. He either was at the Immortal Palace Tier, or he wasn't. How is this hard to answer? Ling Han continued, "After all, you're not aware of the existence of the foreign realm. What if I told you I reached the Ascending Origin Tier there? However, after returning, I was suppressed back to the second secret. Right now, I've recultivated back to the 11th secret. Do you understand?" The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire chuckled in reply. "Reaching the Ascending Origin Tier in some foreign realm? What foreign realm? Moreover, what the hell is the 11th secret? Do you take me for a fool?" Ling Han couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Those who had ascended from the lower realm were now extremely far apart, not only in terms of cultivation, but also in terms of knowledge. Not mentioning himself, the Rain Emperor had also advanced to the Ascending Origin Tier and become a monarch star. Hunyo was no different. However, people like Feng Piyun, Mu Rongqing, and the others had only reached the Dividing Soul Tier at the highest. Meanwhile, even with a lifetime of experience, the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire had only recultivated to the Immortal Palace Tier. Moreover, the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was clearly unaware of the existence of Monarch Tiers and Monarch Stars. He was more so unaware of the battle between dimensions. However, after dropping that huge bomb in the two-realm battlefield, Ling Han was confident that the entire celestial realm would soon learn of the true faces of the Sealed Emotion, Heavenly Venerable, and the two other Heavenly Venerates. They would also learn about the invasion being carried out by the foreign realm. Creating an illusion of peace was of no benefit to the future of the celestial realm. Moreover, the foreign realm was also trying to shake the foundations of the celestial realm by spreading their practice of praying to deities. It was necessary to alert the entire celestial realm to guard against this. "Let me fill you in," Ling Han said with a smile. He then started to tell the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire about the battle between dimensions. While explaining this, he also mentioned the existence of Monarch Tiers and Monarch Stars. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire felt as if he were dreaming. In fact, even the members of the Kong clan didn't dare to believe this. The world they lived in was actually this dangerous? They were at risk of being invaded by another realm at any moment? They were at risk of being completely massacred. When Ling Han finished speaking, The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire was completely and utterly stupefied. He was rendered absolutely speechless. The members of the Kong clan didn't fare any better. Right now, their only thought was that Ling Han had definitely gone mad. It was also at this moment that the reinforcements from the Kong clan arrived. Who dares to challenge the might of the Kong clan? A large group of people marched over, with the leader wearing an expression of incandescent fury. This person had actually forced the members of the Kong clan to kneel in a row? How humiliating. Many people arrived this time, and their cultivation levels also varied greatly. Some were at the Ascending Origin tier, some were at the Immortal Palace tier, and some were even at the Dividing Soul tier or Severing Mundane tier. However, only 4 of them were at the Ascending Origin tier. Ling Han, someone suddenly stammered in a shaky voice. Ling Han looked over before grinning and saying, I remember you. You're Kong Yi, correct? He was one of the 3 Ascending Origin tier elites from the Kong clan who had gone to 9 Snake Island at that time. However, to his shock, not only had Ling Han not fled, but he had even charged into 3 Cloud City. Not good, Kong Yi exclaimed in his mind. This was because a large majority of elites from the Kong clan had been dispatched to 9 Snake Island to hunt Ling Han. However, this brat defied their expectations, and he had actually come straight to 3 Cloud City. Was he seizing this opportunity to destroy the Kong clan? Ling Han? Ling Han? Ling Han? Some of them wore blank expressions. Who in the world was Ling Han? However, the color drained from the faces of those in positions of power at the Kong clan. He was an unfathomably terrifying person. With a single punch, he had easily obliterated the arm of Kong Un, forcing the 3 elites from the Kong clan to flee from 9 Snake Island in disarray. They had been utterly humiliated. Now, this Death Star was actually in 3 Cloud City. What do you want? Kong Yi yelled in a fierce voice. Yet, it was clear that his heart was gripped with fear. Ling Han was like an insurmountable beast. Ling Han patted the shoulder of the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire and said, He's my underling, yet he was tied up and brutally beaten by you people. Now, I've naturally come to avenge him. The members of the Kong clan all felt extremely vexed. When going to 9 Snake Island, it had turned out to be an ancestral ground of Ling Han's wife. When punishing an opponent of the Kong clan, it turned out that he was actually Ling Han's underling. Was the Kong clan destined to clash with this person? The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire felt even more vexed. I'm not your underling. At that time, when Ling Han had begged him to teach him some mystical powers, he had put on all the airs he could, yet he had become an underling now. Ling Han roared with laughter and said, Many people beg to become my underling, yet there's not a chance in hell that they can. If you hadn't been a good friend of mine, I wouldn't have opened such a back door for you, either. He glanced at the members of the Kong clan and said, Come on, let's pay a visit to your clan. I want to see what kind of dangerous place it is. Ling Han, don't push your luck, Kong Yi roared. However, they only had 4 Ascending Origin tier elites present, and there were only 5 more back at the clan quarters. Could the 9 of them stop Ling Han? He didn't have a shred of confidence. Obediently lead the way, Ling Han said with force. Chapter 2385. The Kong clan is no more. Chapter 2385. The Kong clan is no more. Just how powerful was Ling Han now? When he unleashed his body art, he could reach a vitality index of over 4,400. This was thanks to the might of the Heavenly Venerate blood from Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu. However, this blood hadn't unleashed its might all at once, and it would gradually allow Ling Han to become more powerful. Even though Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu had already removed the murderous aura from the blood, if it unleashed all of its might at once, Ling Han would definitely still be killed several times over. If this blood were bestowed upon anyone else, even though they would also receive huge benefits, it would still be incomparable to what Ling Han had received. This was because only Ling Han could draw on the power of heaven and earth to temper his body. These 2 notions were aligned. If one couldn't draw on the power of heaven and earth, they would also fail to fully utilize the potential of heavenly venerable blood. Right now, Ling Han was far too ferocious. With a few strikes, he easily defeated the 4 ascending origin tier elites from the Kong clan. Of course, this was easier due to the fact that only Kong Yi had reached the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. The other 3 were either at the small accomplishment or the great accomplishment. The gulf between them was far too great. After being suppressed by Ling Han, the members of the Kong clan had no option but to lead this wolf into their house. Upon arriving, the remaining 5 ascending origin tier elites also charged forward to attack them. However, they couldn't even defeat the Empress and Hu Niu before being suppressed. And thereupon, Ling Han occupied their clan headquarters. Right now, the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was living the high life, recuperating in the Kong clan with 3 ascending origin tier elites serving him. If he were slightly unhappy, he would chide them with no reservations. After suffering for over 10,000 years, he was naturally pent up with rage. However, he was even more worried about the treasure map that the Kong clan had obtained at that time. Just what kind of treasure had they found? It had actually allowed them to flourish to this stage. Ling Han was also filled with curiosity. He dragged the ascending origin tier elites over and interrogated them again and again. This was evidently a big secret of the Kong clan. Thus, the ascending origin tier elites at the small accomplishment and great accomplishment were indeed unaware of it. They were completely dumbfounded no matter what Ling Han asked them. Only Kong Yi acted secretively and suspiciously. Ling Han couldn't be bothered plucking his soul, so he handed this task to Bewitching Maiden Ro. She was a master of controlling others. With Bewitching Maiden Ro's cultivation, she shouldn't have been capable of affecting an ascending origin tier elite at the consummate level. However, Kong Ye's cultivation had been sealed by Ling Han, so he couldn't resist her ability at all. With a few simple questions, he quickly revealed all that he knew. Following the treasure map, the Kong clan had managed to uncover an astonishing treasure trove. They had obtained an enormous number of alchemical pills, and it was these alchemical pills that had helped them soar in leaps and bounds in these past several billion years. In such a short span of time, they had gained hundreds more ascending origin tier elites. However, this treasure chamber still contained many seals that had yet to be undone. Thus, the Kong clan had only obtained a portion of the treasures. Because of its importance, even Kong Yi didn't know where this treasure chamber was located. This secret was buried deep in the heart of the ancestor of the Kong clan. The treasure storage of an ancient celestial king? The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire asked in excitement. However, Ling Han said, with so many alchemical pills, enough to help hundreds of people advance to the ascending origin tier, I suspect that this isn't the treasure storage of a celestial king. Instead, it's probably the treasure storage of a 5-star alchemist. His heart thumped in excitement. He was only a step away from becoming a 5-star alchemist. If he were able to interact with some 5-star alchemical pills, perhaps this door would be pushed open, allowing him to take the final and most critical step. 5-star alchemist. An expression of respect and reverence involuntarily spread across the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire's face. It was arguable that becoming a 5-star alchemist was even more difficult than becoming a celestial king. Even though there were few celestial kings in the world, it wasn't that they were extremely rare, either. However, 5-star alchemists were as rare as could be. Such was their status that even lower-level celestial kings would have to pay their respects to them. Higher-level celestial kings would also need to treat them with respect. Ling Han shook his head, lightly punching him in the shoulder and saying, "There's nothing special about 5-star alchemists. In the near future, your older brother will also become such an existence." Haha. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire naturally didn't believe this. Being talented in cultivation and being talented in alchemy were two completely different things. Ling Han didn't explain himself. In any case, there would come a day when his underling would become transfixed with shock. After waiting for just 2 days, the army of the Kong clan finally came charging back. "Get the fuck out here!" An old man with white eyebrows and white hair bellowed. He was tall and sturdy, and he was dressed in a red robe. He was none other than the clan leader of the Kong clan. At the same time, He was also the first ascending origin tier elite of the Kong clan. He was the one who had obtained the treasure map. Upon arriving back at the clan, he was immediately flooded with wails of grief and vexation. This was naturally because the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire had been far too wanton about taking his anger out on them. The past 2 days had been agonizing torture for the members of the Kong clan. It had only ever been them enslaving others. How could they possibly accept the opposite? Crack! Lightning shook heaven and earth as dark clouds formed above the Kong clan. This was heavenly tribulation. The members of the Kong clan were all given a fright. Heavenly tribulation was indiscriminate, and its rage could easily reduce the entire Kong clan to rubble. Whoosh! A figure soared into the sky. It was none other than the Empress. She had accumulated enough experience, so she resolutely unleashed her cultivation to invite heavenly tribulation. She cared nothing about others, so she naturally didn't give a toss about whose home this was. In any case, it would be fine as long as it wasn't her own home. Thus, she decided to face her tribulation here. Crack, crack, crack. Deafening thunder rumbled as arcs of vicious lightning blasted toward the Empress. The Empress was an extraordinary being. She was an 11th secret monarch star, and she had even cultivated some source power. Thus, in the eyes of heaven and earth, she was an anomaly that couldn't be tolerated. As such, this heavenly tribulation was as terrifying as could be, its power far surpassing what ordinary cultivators at the small accomplishment of the ascending origin tier would face. This greatly alarmed the members of the Kong clan. They thought this was an elite advancing from the small accomplishment to the great accomplishment. Moreover, even though heavenly tribulation wouldn't strike innocent people, it would be indiscriminate toward buildings and other inanimate objects. After just 2 or 3 strikes of lightning, the Kong clan was already reduced to ruins. Ah! The elites of the Kong clan all roared in fury. However, they were completely powerless to stop this. Would they dare to charge into heavenly tribulation to drag the Empress away? If they dared to interfere with heavenly tribulation, they would be ruthlessly targeted by heaven and earth. Apart from freaks like Ling Han, who dared to face heavenly tribulation for fun, all they could do was bellow in rage, swearing to themselves that they would definitely crush Ling Han and the others to death. After half a day, the dark clouds finally dissipated, signaling the conclusion of heavenly tribulation. The heaven and earth of the celestial realm wasn't as powerful as the heaven and earth of the foreign realm, so its heavenly tribulation would also last for a much shorter time. Just as the members of the Kong clan were about to unleash their fury, dark clouds formed above their heads again, signaling the arrival of a new heavenly tribulation. Fuck, what's going on? They're lining up to face tribulations? Nyo is also going to play. Hunyo shouted in excitement. She dashed into the sky, beginning to face her tribulation. The members of the Kong clan all wore ashen expressions. Even though their headquarters had been destroyed by the Empress tribulation, there had still been a possibility that they could have rebuilt it. However, with Hunyo's tribulation lashing down, the flattened earth was further transformed into an expanse of uneven craters. However, this was only the beginning. Judging by the size of the tribulation, it was as if it wanted to transform the ancestral grounds of the Kong clan into a vast sea. Sure enough, after half a day, the ancestral grounds of the Kong clan vanished once and for all. What replaced it was a gigantic lake that was almost as large as a sea. They're finished, right? The members of the Kong clan were already seething with rage. Just as they were about to unleash this rage, crack! There was the rumble of thunder as another tribulation formed overhead. Are you people done yet? This time, it was bewitching Maidenrow. She had also recultivated to the ascending origin tier. She soared into the sky to face her tribulation. Very well. After half a day, the gigantic lake truly transformed into a sea. You utterly disgusting trash! The ancestor of the Kong clan roared as he glared at Ling Han and the others. When Ling Han's 3 wives had been facing their tribulations, he had drawn the others into his spatial god tool. Meanwhile, He had dealt with the shock waves of the tribulation by himself. This was nothing for him. The ancestor of the Kong clan could barely control his rage. He was going to kill them all. No, he was going to fucking eat them alive. Chapter 2386, Lion in a Flock of Sheep. Chapter 2386, Lion in a Flock of Sheep. The ancestor of the Kong clan immediately charged over, with columns of angry white air shooting from his nose. His eyes were ablaze, and it was clear that he had reached the epitome of fury. This was an indescribable fury. It was a fury that made him want to eat them alive. He summoned a black sword and viciously slashed down at Ling Han. Following this slash, the symbols on the sword also lit up one after another, causing it to be enveloped in black mist that eventually transformed into countless skulls. The sword had yet to reach its target, yet a cacophony of piercing screams had already infiltrated Ling Han's mind. This wasn't some ordinary sound, but it was instead a divine sense attack. Ling Han humphed softly and roared, "Begone!" "Pa!" The countless skulls instantly shattered into pieces. Meanwhile, the screams in his mind also vanished into nothingness. The ancestor of the Kong clan became as pale as a sheet. He was already aware of Ling Han's insane power, but before witnessing it in person, he had been completely unable to imagine it. How is he so powerful? "Attack him together," he commanded. He didn't try to save face, and he instead called for reinforcements. All of the ascending origin tier elites from the Kong clan instantly charged forward. They were hundreds strong, and they immediately encircled Ling Han. The Empress and Hunyo didn't interfere. They had full confidence in Ling Han. However, the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was filled with anxiety. This was 100 or so ascending origin tier elites. Moreover, over half of them had reached or were about to reach the pinnacle of the consummate level. Regardless of how powerful Ling Han was, he was only a lone immortal palace tier elite. Could he truly rival them? "Charge!" the ancestor of the Kong clan commanded. He took the lead as they all charged at Ling Han. The elites of the Kong clan all attacked in unison, instantly flooding the surroundings with blinding light and furious energy, further drawing on the power of regulations, and the might that they unleashed was utterly terrifying to witness. Ling Han roared with laughter as he unleashed his fists of fury. Like a lion entering a flock of sheep, he actively charged into the large group of enemies. Pong, pong, pong. Just how freakish was his body art now? With each punch, a member of the Kong clan would be sent flying. They were simply no match for him. After a dozen or so punches, a dozen or so elites from the Kong clan were left with bloody and severe wounds. In fact, even their bones had been snapped and left sticking out of their skin. This was a harrowing sight. They were all rendered numb with fear. Just what kind of unfathomable battle prowess was this? Even though the ones who had been sent flying were only at the small accomplishment and great accomplishment, those at the consummate level would also stumble back in retreat when struck by Ling Han's powerful punches. The gulf between them and Ling Han was as clear as day. "Don't battle with him head-on," the ancestor of the Kong clan warned. Their opponent was far too destructive, so fighting with him head-on would only lead to injury and misfortune. The elites of the Kong clan immediately dispersed. Sure enough, they didn't dare to face Ling Han directly anymore. However, Ling Han unleashed the regulations of space and transformed into hundreds of thousands of clones. Trying to evade his attacks wouldn't be so easy. Moreover, unleashing the power of his physique meant that he didn't need to draw on the power of regulations. Even though this would only save him a small amount of effort, it was enough for him to seize an absolute advantage. Pong, pong, pong. Wherever Ling Han passed, members of the Kong clan would be sent flying into the air. He was like a celestial maiden scattering flowers into the surroundings. Ling Han didn't show any mercy. He had briefly investigated the Kong clan these past 2 days, and they truly couldn't be classified as a peaceful and good clan. Instead, they were a typical example of a clan that had suddenly struck fortune. Relying on their large number of elites, they had harassed men and enslaved women, doing all evils that they could imagine. Thus, Ling Han didn't show any mercy at all. So be it if he killed these people. Moreover, what did it matter that the number of sheep was great? They were but food to fill the belly of the lion. In just a short moment, only 30 or so elites remained standing from the initial 100 or so. All of you, stand back, the ancestor of the Kong clan commanded in a solemn voice. They all exchanged glances. Perhaps their ancestor was going to lower his head to this youth? Otherwise, how could he rival Ling Han by himself? However, the ancestor of the Kong clan clearly had no intention to surrender. Instead, he summoned a sword. Wong. This sword hovered out from his body, instantly unleashing a boundless green light. A paramount aura enveloped the surroundings, striking fear into everyone's heart. Wally transformed back into his original form as he dropped down from Ling Han's body. Green light shot from his eyes as he stared at the sword. Celestial tool. Ling Han exclaimed in surprise. The Kong clan had definitely discovered a gigantic treasure trove, one that even contained celestial tools. They were already wealthier than many celestial kings. In any case, it was clear that this was the first time that the ancestor of the Kong clan had summoned this sword. However, it was understandable that he had kept it a secret. After all, an ascending origin tier elite possessing a celestial tool was a clear recipe for attracting disaster. The members of the Kong clan all wore blank expressions, and it was as if they were completely unaware of what was happening. However, many of them had already fallen to their knees involuntarily. This was the might of a celestial king. This divine sword naturally wouldn't recognize the ancestor of the Kong clan as its owner. Thus, he was unable to unleash its full might. Even so, this was still a celestial tool, so how could ordinary people withstand its celestial king tier might? Now that you've seen the Green Song divine sword, you can die without any regrets, the ancestor of the Kong clan said with a cold chuckle. He charged forward with the sword. Swoosh! A burst of sword chi swept over, slicing space apart and even shattering the regulations. The Celestial King tier was equal in status to regulations. Thus, even though the celestial tool couldn't unleash its full might, its destructive power was still far beyond anything that an ascending origin tier elite could rival. Ling Han dashed aside to dodge this attack. The sword chi being powerful was one matter. However, it was only being wielded by the ancestor of the Kong clan, someone at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. You can pay off your debts with this sword, Wally said. After sweeping his green gaze over the sword, a satisfied expression spread across his face. If he wanted to evolve, he would need to consume source power from the Genesis world. Thus, he was extremely drawn to things like the divine demon sword. Ling Han chuckled and said, "All right, then go and get it yourself. I'm a support-style war soldier. Fighting isn't my strong suit," Wally replied in a serious voice. He didn't catch the teasing tone in Ling Han's voice at all. "You're still dreaming of fighting against a celestial tool?" the ancestor of the Kong clan said with a sneer. He slashed down with the Green Song divine sword again and again, unleashing torrents of petrifying sword intent. The entire space was torn into shreds. As a result, Ling Han was no longer able to draw on the surrounding power of regulations. They had all been obliterated by the divine sword. Glory to the ancestor! Upon seeing Ling Han being forced to dodge and flee, the members of the Kong clan were all filled with vigor and excitement. They shouted in delirium, and they felt as if they could finally breathe out their pent-up anger. "You actually dared to challenge the grand might of the Kong clan? You've truly grown tired of living. Cripple his cultivation and hang him before the city gates. Let him die a miserable and torturous death. No, no, no. His battle prowess is terrifying, so it's best that we kill him as soon as possible. We can't give him any chance to turn the tables." Upon hearing the mention of hanging someone at the city gates, the expression of the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire instantly turned dark. His mind naturally wandered back to the time when he had suffered this wretched fate. He gritted his teeth in anger. The ancestor of the Kong clan was filled with fighting spirit as he roared again and again. He swung the divine sword quicker and quicker, and it was clear that he wanted to kill Ling Han as quickly as possible. This young cultivator was far too terrifying. If he allowed him to develop any more, perhaps even a divine sword wouldn't be able to suppress him. "Brat, where has your arrogance disappeared?" the ancestor of the Kong clan said with a sneer. Even the 100 or so ascending origin tier elites of the Kong clan hadn't been able to suppress Ling Han, and they had instead been either killed or severely wounded by him. Now that the tables had turned, he naturally couldn't help but taunt and ridicule Ling Han. Ling Han grinned and said, "Old man, be careful of extreme joy begetting sorrow." "You can only shoot your mouth off now," the ancestor of the Kong clan scoffed. Ling Han shook his head, saying, "Initially, I still wanted to satisfy your thirst for vainglory. However, since you're itching for a beating, fine, I'll satisfy you." Whoosh! Another burst of sword chi swept over. This was the paramount regulation itself, and it could sever all matter in the world. However, Ling Han was unafraid as he charged toward it. It was as if he were going to face the might of the divine sword head-on. The ancestor of the Kong clan was both astonished and delighted. He hadn't imagined that Ling Han would actually be so foolish. However, he naturally wasn't against this. He chuckled in his mind. This brat has truly lost his mind. Just because he's freakish, he thinks he can even rival the might of a divine sword? Pooh! However, the scene that followed caused his eyes to pop from their sockets. Chapter 2387, Trap. Chapter 2387, Trap. A burst of razor-sharp sword light also exploded from Ling Han's body, blocking the attack of the Green Song Divine Sword. He was completely unscathed. How could the ancestor of the Kong clan not be astounded? That was a divine sword. It was a sword that could slice through anything. Now, however, it had actually failed to kill Ling Han. How was this possible? Was this brat so freakish that he could even rival celestial kings? Ling Han charged over with divine demon sword in hand. It was none other than the divine demon sword that had blocked the sword chi of the Green Song Divine Sword. Otherwise, even with a physique as freakish as his, there was no way that Ling Han would dare to face the attack of a celestial tool head-on. That would be no different from suicide. The ancestor of the Kong clan refused to accept this, and he continued to swing the Green Song Divine Sword again and again. He attacked Ling Han in wild fury. Pong, pong, pong. Ling Han brandished his divine demon sword to parry these attacks, blocking the bursts of deadly sword chi. Even though the divine demon sword wasn't a celestial tool yet, its material had already reached the level of divine metal. In any case, the Green Song Divine Sword couldn't unleash the true might of celestial kings, so there was actually little difference in might between the two swords. "Why, you also own a celestial tool?" the ancestor of the Kong clan stammered in disbelief. He was truly flustered at this moment. The Green Song Divine Sword was his ultimate trump card, yet Ling Han was actually able to rival it? How could he not be flustered? This was a celestial tool, something that even celestial kings didn't necessarily possess. How could such a measly immortal palace tier elite obtain one? If he knew that Ling Han not only possessed a celestial tool, but that the divine demon sword even had the potential to become a heavenly venerate tool, perhaps he would pass out in fright. In fact, Ling Han already possessed a heavenly venerate tool. It was just that this heavenly venerate tool was severely wounded at this moment, meaning that he couldn't use it for a very long time. Ling Han charged over, brimming with might as he slashed down with his divine demon sword. Clang, clang, clang. His sword violently clashed with the Green Song Divine Sword. If outsiders saw this, they would definitely be transfixed with shock. This was because two non-celestial king tier cultivators were actually wielding a celestial tool each. Many celestial kings would be utterly embarrassed and humiliated by this sight. Pong! After blocking 7 strikes, the ancestor of the Kong clan was finally unable to endure anymore. He started to vomit blood. He hurriedly retrieved some alchemical pills to ingest, and his aura started to recover in no time. In fact, it became even stronger than before. It was clear that these alchemical pills did more than just heal him. Beyond that, they could even elevate his battle prowess. However, could a person's battle prowess increase for no reason at all, especially at the ascending origin tier, where even advancing a slight amount was unfathomably difficult? Ling Han was now certain that the Kong clan had definitely uncovered the treasure storage of some grand alchemist. Otherwise, how could they possess so many alchemical pills? Moreover, these were all extremely high-level alchemical pills. In any case, under Ling Han's relentless attacks, it wasn't long before the ancestor of the Kong clan started to show signs of struggle again. This time, he couldn't ingest any more alchemical pills. It wasn't that he had run out of them, but rather that the effects of these alchemical pills were far too potent. They could not only heal someone, but they could even unleash someone's potential. However, it was also because of this that one couldn't ingest too many of these pills. Otherwise, they would die from an overdose. However, Ling Han was far too powerful, so the ancestor of the Kong clan could only block a few strikes before suffering severe wounds again. He felt like he was about to die. "Stop! Stop!" he shouted as he hurriedly shot back in retreat. He tried to distance himself from Ling Han, shouting, "Young man, there's no unresolvable animosity between us, so why don't we stop here? I'm willing to compensate your friend." After uttering these words, he couldn't help but feel humiliated and vexed. Their ancestral grounds had been flattened, and their elites had been wounded and killed. Yet, he actually had to apologize to the culprit behind all of this? How could he not feel vexed and angry? However, what else could he do? If he continued to fight, it was certain that he would end up dead. "All right," Ling Han said with a nod. "At that time, you snatched a treasure map from my underling. You can return that map now. Of course, you need to return it with all the treasures that you obtained as well." The ancestor of the Kong clan wore a livid expression. This treasure map was far too important. Even after several billion years, and even though he had already obtained so many treasures, he had only managed to clear out half of the treasure storage. Moreover, the most valuable treasures still remained inside. It wasn't that he didn't want to retrieve these treasures, but rather that he couldn't. He needed a profound amount of time to undo the seals in the treasure storage. Thus, how could he hand this treasure map over? It was the foundation for the Kong clan's rise. The ancestor of the Kong clan smiled and said, "To be honest with you, I've already cleared out the entire treasure storage. As for the treasure map, I naturally burned it a long time ago." Ling Han shook his head and said, "Old man, are you trying to trick a 3-year-old with these words? If you don't hand the treasure map over, you won't live to see another day." Old geezer. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire also stepped forward. Since Ling Han had gained an upper hand, he was naturally unafraid to speak as well. "There's genuinely no treasure map to hand over," the ancestor of the Kong clan said in a sincere voice. "Then I'll retrieve it by myself," Ling Han said. He charged forward with vigor, slashing down with his divine demon sword. The ancestor of the Kong clan blocked a few strikes, yet he became increasingly unable to resist. After a while, Ling Han sent him sprawling with a punch before taking him captive. "Search his mind," the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire said. He bitterly hated the Kong clan, especially the ancestor of the Kong clan. If it weren't for this person, he would have definitely advanced to the ascending origin tier already. "No!" the ancestor of the Kong clan hurriedly shouted. He was filled with fear, and he continued, "I've already formed a seal in my mind. If someone tries to search it, it will immediately explode. You won't be able to find any secret." He was clearly afraid of death. After all, searching his mind was equivalent to killing him. Ling Han naturally wouldn't trust him so easily. He placed a hand on his head and sent a wisp of his divine sense inside. It wasn't long before he discovered that the ancestor of the Kong clan was indeed telling the truth. His mind was protected by seals that would self-destruct upon contact. "Don't even dream about trying to interrogate me, either. Under the effects of these seals, it's impossible for me to reveal any information regarding the treasure map. Once I speak, my mind will crumble into pieces," the ancestor of the Kong clan said. Ling Han frowned upon hearing this. He hadn't expected the ancestor of the Kong clan to be so ruthless to himself. However, I can take you to that treasure chamber, the ancestor of the Kong clan said. With a quick turn, the ancestor of the Kong clan surprisingly made a concession. That treasure chamber was extremely dangerous. After several billion years, he had only managed to undo half of the restrictions there. Meanwhile, the remaining restrictions were even more terrifying. Trying to undo them would take a profound amount of time. At the very least, he was extremely familiar with this treasure chamber. As long as they entered together, he was confident that he could trick Ling Han and the others to their death. This was a trap. This was his key to transforming defeat into victory. Ling clan gazed at the ancestor of the Kong clan. He was naturally aware of what this person was planning. However, he was unsure of just how dangerous this treasure chamber really was. However, would he falter in the face of danger? Ling Han smiled and said, "Fine, then I'll be troubling you." Ling Han, the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire, hurriedly exclaimed in warning. The attitude of this person had changed far too quickly. He was definitely scheming something sinister. "If you're too scared to go, then there'll be no treasures for you," Ling Han said with a chuckle. "Me? Too scared?" The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire had a quick temper, so he immediately straightened his body and announced that he was going to go. However, he was no fool either. Since even the ancestor of the Kong clan could retrieve treasures from there, someone as powerful as Ling Han would naturally be fine as long as he was careful. Even so, they naturally couldn't be careless when entering such a dangerous place. Ling Han and the others made some preparations first before following the lead of the ancestor of the Kong clan to the treasure chamber. Only after setting off did the ancestor of the Kong clan reveal that the treasure chamber was located far away in the Seven Majestic Heaven. Chapter 2388, Advancing Physique. Chapter 2388, Advancing Physique. Ling Han was astonished as he glanced at the ancestor of the Kong clan. This old man was truly good at hiding things. The treasure chamber was in the Seven Majestic Heaven, yet he had situated the clan in the Scorching Flames Heaven. There were a whopping 3 heavenly realms between these two places. Couldn't he have situated the clan somewhere closer? At least somewhere in the same heavenly realm? However, this was naturally an arrangement made in order to keep the secret. The sudden rise of the Kong clan had been far too unnatural. Anyone could see a problem. In fact, it was certain that members within the clan had also grown greedy and restless, yearning to take the treasure chamber for themselves. Thus, the ancestor of the Kong clan had decided to build the clan in the Scorching Flames Heaven. That way, no one would ever suspect that the treasure chamber was located in the Seven Majestic Heaven. Otherwise, would it not be simpler to build the clan in the Seven Majestic Heaven? That way, it would definitely be easier to travel to and from the treasure chamber. Judging from this, it was clear that the ancestor of the Kong clan was a careful and meticulous person. It was also no wonder that he had placed seals in his own mind. However, it was also clear that this treasure chamber was definitely a profound place. It was because of this that the ancestor of the Kong clan was so unbelievably careful. Ling Han was completely unafraid. He was simply filled with eagerness and anticipation. It was genuinely possible that this was the treasure chamber of a 5-star alchemist. It was genuinely possible that he would find Celestial King-tier alchemical pills inside. In order to save time, Ling Han drew most of the people into his spatial god tool. Without the Black Tower, he felt that things were much more troublesome than before. After all, spatial god tools weren't exactly safe places to stay inside. They could be shattered very easily. It would be much better if he could forge them from divine metal. Ling Han turned his attention to the Green Song Divine Sword. However, this was a divine sword. It was one matter that one couldn't unleash its full might if the sword didn't recognize them as its master. However, if he wanted to dissect or damage it, the sword would definitely unleash its might by itself. This was the grand power of a celestial king. Who dared to challenge it? At the very least, Ling Han wasn't keen to face it. However, Wally was extremely eager, and he wanted Ling Han to obtain the Green Song Divine Sword for him. He said that Ling Han owed him this. You need 100 million years just to digest that one scroll, so giving it to you is definitely a waste. I'll look after it in the meantime. Rest assured, I definitely won't steal your things. Ling Han said in righteousness. Oh, that's right. Are you able to eliminate the Celestial King symbols on the sword? If these Celestial King symbols were destroyed, the Celestial tool would be reduced to nothing more than a sharp weapon. It would only possess the innate might of divine metal, and it would be unable to unleash the power of Celestial Kings. In the eyes of others, this would be a humongous waste. It would be a case of neglecting the essentials to attend to the trifles. Why was a Celestial tool freakish? It was exactly because of these Celestial King symbols. Only divine metal could withstand such power, and all other materials would crumble under the magnificent power of Celestial Kings. Wally nodded and said, My body can automatically extract all fundamental matter. Can I learn this skill? Ling Han shamelessly asked. No, you can't, Wally replied with a shake of his head. My body is constructed from superstring materials, allowing me to possess an incredible recovery ability. Ling Han had indeed witnessed this ability before. He had managed to recover even after being smashed to pieces by the large black dog. Moreover, it was as if he hadn't experienced any wounds at all. Upon seeing this, the large black dog had thirsted for such an ability. However, it was a shame that it couldn't be taught. Ling Han shook his head. He might as well go and play with Little Terror. It was recultivating using the cultivation system of the Celestial Realm, and it had to be said that its progress was as slow as could be. This was naturally because it was formed by the heaven and earth of the foreign realm, meaning that it was born to fight for the foreign realm. Now that it had come to the Celestial Realm, it was naturally being targeted and suppressed to a great degree. If it weren't for Wally performing some surgery on Little Terror, changing some things and teaching it some other things, Little Terror would very likely have been immediately targeted and killed by heaven and earth upon entering the Celestial Realm. Ling Han accelerated time for Little Terror, allowing it to develop quicker and advance to the expected cultivation level quicker. No matter what, it at least needed to return to the Ascending Origin tier. Speaking of returning to the Ascending Origin tier, after traveling for 7 days, Ling Han also felt like he had accumulated enough experience and comprehension. He couldn't find a single flaw in his cultivation. Even Wally nodded in agreement. This was naturally thanks to the heavenly venerate blood. Otherwise, Ling Han might have needed to cultivate for dozens of years more before advancing. He unleashed his cultivation and resolutely invited heavenly tribulation. Half a day passed, and Ling Han descended from the sky, unscathed. He got the others to obtain a carriage, and he sat inside to comprehend Tao. After his facing heavenly tribulation, a wealth of enlightenment had burst into his mind. This was mainly because the heavenly venerate blood had fused together with the indestructible heaven scroll. After reaching such a cultivation level, trying to advance his physique and divine sense with the indestructible heaven scroll no longer relied on cultivating in seclusion. Instead, it required a vast amount of natural treasures. However, even though Ling Han had obtained the resources of so many ancestral kings, he was still extremely tight on resources. After all, few ancestral kings would keep all of their belongings in their spatial god tool. In any case, during such intense battles, how could the spatial god tools of the ancestral kings have withstood the might of fellow ancestral kings, or even heavenly venerates? Many of them had naturally been destroyed, with their contents disappearing into the void. Ling Han's physique was indeed advancing. However, it was doing so at a snail's pace. After facing heavenly tribulation, however, he had unexpectedly activated the heavenly venerate blood. This made him feel like his physique could advance to a new height. Just what kind of beings were heavenly venerates? These were beings who were transcendent above regulations. Just a single drop of their blood was unfathomably valuable, to say nothing of a handful. It was far more useful than any natural treasure. However, heavenly venerate Wu Lu had been afraid of killing Ling Han, so he had slowed down the effects of the heavenly venerate blood. After being stimulated by heavenly tribulation, however, This blood had unleashed a small portion of its power. Ling Han was slowly enveloped by a thick cocoon. Its surface was golden yellow, and it more so shimmered with 18 different colors. It radiated with a paramount might. In the presence of such might, the others couldn't advance at all. They didn't dare to move this cocoon, so they could only pause their trip. Several days passed, and the golden cocoon finally cracked apart. Ling Han soared into the sky, his body completely naked. However, no one could see him clearly. This was because he was shrouded in colorful light that pulsated with an astonishing aura. "Ah, my eyes!" the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire exclaimed as he hurriedly turned around. Even though he couldn't see clearly, he was naturally aware of Ling Han's current state. He had actually seen the naked body of another man. He could barely contain his emotions. "Pa!" The empress immediately smacked him to the floor. He actually dared to shun the body of her man? Was he tired of living? Being able to witness it was his fortune. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire could only hide his grief. He knew just how prideful the empress was. Trying to reason with her would be completely futile. Thus, he had no option but to swallow his emotions. In any case, who told him to voice his feelings? Ling Han retrieved some clothes from his spatial god tool before descending to the ground. He was beaming from ear to ear. "How do you feel?" The empress, Hunyo, and bewitching Maiden Ro asked as they gathered over. Meanwhile, his other wives all remained in the spatial god tool. They were all filled with eagerness. Ling Han had actually been shrouded in colorful light. This was a phenomenon unique to celestial kings. Ling Han shook his head and said, "I'm still nowhere near the level of celestial king." The colorful light had appeared due to the heavenly venerate blood. "You're not far off," Wally said. Green light scanned Ling Han up and down, and he continued, "Right now, your defense index has reached 4,800. Once it reaches 5,000, that will correspond to your so-called celestial king tier." This was absolutely terrifying. One had to realize that celestial kings could only gain such a powerful defense after channeling the power of regulations. However, Ling Han's physique alone had already reached such a state it was eternal. Comparing the two, it was easy to see just how freakish he was. Ling Han was also just learning of this. He only knew that his physique had advanced by a considerable amount, and that it was still unable to withstand the might of celestial tools head-on. However, he hadn't realized that the gap was already so small. Chapter 2389, Jiu Quan. Chapter 2389, Jiu Quan. The ancestor of the Kong clan was also listening in beside them, yet he couldn't make head nor tail of what was going on. What defense index? However, he at least understood that Ling Han's physique was incredibly freakish. It was almost at the Celestial King tier. Fortunately, it hadn't reached the Celestial King tier yet. Otherwise, the restrictions in the treasure chamber might not be able to wound him. Of course, it was also possible that these people were purposely lavishing praise onto Ling Han, with the intention of warning him not to have any dangerous thoughts. If that were the case, their attempts were in vain. They continued their journey. Ling Han and the Empress successfully unlocked a higher cultivation limit, so they could naturally start to cultivate source power again. This was truly a long process. Even with the blood essence of ancestral kings, they could only shorten this process by 10-fold to 100-fold, but it would still require a shocking amount of time. They didn't hide their tracks. In any case, it would have been extremely difficult to hide. This was because they needed to use numerous transfer formations, so the chance of being discovered was very high anyway. Thus, after traveling for around 2 months, their path was finally blocked by someone. It was an ordinary-looking young man. He was dressed in coarse clothes, and even though he was clearly young, he had a weathered and worn look. It was as if he had suffered far too much grief, causing his expression to become one of perpetual melancholy. He was obstructing Ling Han and the others' path, and he had even placed a large boulder in the middle of the road. He sat atop this boulder with his eyes half closed. However, this still couldn't hide his expression of melancholy. "I'll go," the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire volunteered. He had already made a full recovery. Ling Han had refined some top-notch healing alchemical pills for him, and it was naturally very easy to heal the wounds of a measly immortal palace tier cultivator. Moreover, Ling Han was extremely generous to his friends, so he had even given the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire a significant amount of ancestral king blood. This greatly increased his cultivation speed, causing his battle prowess to also become much superior to what it had been before. Thus, he was itching to test himself out. Ling Han smiled and said, "You want to go? Perhaps even 10,000 of you won't be able to rival a single finger of this person." The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire naturally didn't believe this. "Brat, are you belittling me?" "He's speaking the truth," the young man on the boulder suddenly said. He opened his eyes, and they were surprisingly a haze of white. It was as if he were blind. However, possessing the ability to easily defeat the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire, he was definitely an immortal palace tier elite at the very least. That being the case, how could he not heal his eyes? The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was infuriated. So be it if Ling Han belittled him. He could treat this as banter between friends. However, who the fuck did this person think he was? Ling Han looked toward the youth and asked, "You are?" "Jiu Quan," the youth replied apathetically. "I possess everything, yet I always lack joy. I'm unable to attain perfection, so I'm called Jiu Quan 1. Hunyo was extremely curious, and she asked, "Why not Jumei 1? Jiu Quan glanced at Hunyo and replied, "Because Jumei is my junior sister 1. "Alrighty then. It's a pair of weirdos." "Don't try to change the topic. Am I really that weak?" the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire asked, unwilling to accept this. Jiu Quan stood up, and a devastating aura instantly surged forth. This was the unique aura of an ascending origin tier elite. His source power pulsated, easily resonating with the regulations of heaven and earth. This was because source power was the fundamental power of the world, so it was naturally closer to the regulations. "Consummate level of the ascending origin tier," Ling Han said. The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire immediately shut up, to say nothing of an ascending origin tier elite at the consummate level. Even one at the small accomplishment could easily kill him 10,000 times over. "I think we've met before?" Ling Han said with a smile. "No, we haven't," Jiu Quan replied with a shake of his head. "So there's no animosity between us?" Ling Han asked. "No," Jiu Quan replied with another shake of his head. "Then why are you blocking our path?" Jiu Quan sighed and said, "I can't go against Master's commands." "Oh." Ling Han nodded and asked, "Who's your master?" "Arduous Law Celestial King," Jiu Quan replied in a respectful voice. "Never heard of him," Ling Han said with a shake of his head. "Then you've definitely heard of my Grandmaster's esteemed name," Jiu Quan said. His eyes lit up, and it was as if an arc of raging lightning were shooting across the clear sky, forcing the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire to involuntarily squint. "He's the Jiwu Heavenly Venerate." The Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire was astounded. He was naturally aware of the existence of Heavenly Venerates now. This Jiu Quan person was actually the grand disciple of a Heavenly Venerate? This was far too terrifying. He hurriedly opened his eyes, only to see Ling Han taking a step forward. His body leaned forward, and 2 gashes had already appeared on the sleeves on his forearm. These were clean cuts that had clearly been left by a sharp weapon. He then looked at Jiu Quan, only to see that a sword had appeared in his hand at some time. Right now, he was slowly sheathing this sword. With a crisp clang, the sword fully slid into its sheath. Whoosh! Ling Han's sleeves were completely severed, and they slowly drifted to the ground. However, there wasn't a single scratch on his arm. It was clear that in the split second that the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire had closed his eyes, Ling Han had already exchanged a strike with Jiu Quan. In fact, they might have already exchanged several strikes. However, the Heavenly Emperor of Thunder and Fire hadn't noticed these exchanges at all. If he hadn't opened his eyes to witness them, perhaps he would have thought that he had simply blinked and not missed anything at all. He drew a sharp breath. Just how powerful were these 2 people? Very well, you're worthy of being my opponent, Jiu Quan said apathetically. He possessed everything but the feeling of joy. He would never smile either. I'm at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier, and you're at the small accomplishment. I'm only 2 minor levels above you. These were the words of Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu. They could target Ling Han as long as they were no more than 2 minor levels above him. Even the grand disciple of a Heavenly Venerate was being so careful, so it was clear that Heavenly Venerate Wu Lu had truly made a name for himself during that battle. He had also announced to the world that the Celestial Realm had a 4th Heavenly Venerate, one who was incredibly powerful and assertive. Ling Han clasped his hands behind his back and said, "Then come, let's spar." The two of them soared into the sky. In no time, the sky was immediately filled with astonishing explosions. Deafening booms surged over, and it was as if the sky were rumbling with thunder. Everyone was gazing up at the sky. However, apart from Hun Yo, the Empress, and bewitching Maiden Ro, the 3 ascending origin tier elites, no one else could see the battle clearly. The ancestor of the Kong clan couldn't see it clearly either. This was because his cultivation had been sealed. However, he silently prayed that Jiu Quan could kill Ling Han and his companions. That way, he could finally break free. Of course, he was also slightly worried. What if Jiu Quan chose the path of violence and killed him as well? However, it wasn't long before the explosions in the sky ceased. Peace and tranquility returned. Whoosh! A figure shot down. It was none other than Ling Han. He fled, Ling Han said. He squinted as he gazed into the distance. He had to admit that Jiu Quan was indeed a worthy opponent. He was extremely powerful. However, thanks to Ling Han's freakish physique, Jiu Quan could only be suppressed and pummeled. Thus, he naturally chose to flee. As the grand disciple of a Heavenly Venerate, he was indeed superior to most others. If Ling Han hadn't obtained the Heavenly Venerate blood and advanced his physique, the outcome of this battle would have been much harder to determine. After all, Jiu Quan possessed an advantage of 2 minor levels. By the looks of it, this won't be a peaceful trip, Ling Han said with a shake of his head. Their location had already been exposed, so the elites from the 3 Heavenly Venerate lineages would definitely continue to hunt them. However, as long as he wasn't attacked by a celestial king, Ling Han was genuinely unafraid. They continued to advance. Sure enough, they were met with a wave after wave of attacks. Some came alone, while others came in groups. However, they were all beaten back by Ling Han. Some were even killed on the spot, serving as a warning to the others. Several months passed, and they had already entered the 7 majestic heaven. They had also traveled through the final transference portal. At this moment, they only had the final stretch left to travel. Huh! Everyone exclaimed in astonishment. This was because 2 groups of people were engaged in a bloody battle before them. Moreover, the surroundings were already littered with corpses. Chapter 2390, Human Traffickers. Chapter 2390, Human Traffickers. When Ling Han and the others arrived, the battle was already drawing to a conclusion. One side only had 3 people remaining, while the other side was still strong in numbers. They had already gained an absolute advantage, so exterminating their opponents wouldn't take much longer. This is the business of the Black Wind faction. If you know what's good for you, then piss off. A person from the more numerous side roared at Ling Han and the others. He wore a murderous expression. The situation seemed extremely clear. A group of mountain bandits was currently robbing another group, and Ling Han and the others had coincidentally come across their skirmish. However, was this truly a coincidence? During their journey, they had been hunted by far too many people. Even though they had all been beaten off, it was exactly because of this that they were even more cautious. Perhaps they had realized the futility of attacking them head-on, so they were trying out other tactics now. However, Ling Han was unafraid. He smiled and said, "What kind of business is this? Why don't we get rich together?" The members of the Black Wind faction all faltered upon hearing this. Were these people provoking them on purpose? Or were they truly this stupid? One of the bandits saw Hun Yo and the others, and he couldn't help but gulp in lust. These 3 women are fairly fine. Go and test them out. Three bandits instantly leaped forward, swinging their broadswords at Ling Han, the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire, and the others. The heavenly emperor of thunder and fire was extremely pissed off. What in the world had he done? Why were these people randomly attacking him? Did he look like a pushover? He immediately charged forward. Pong, pong, pong. With a single punch from him, the three bandits were all sent flying, drawing a wonderful arc in the air before heavily thudding on the ground. Because these people were evil and merciless bandits, he hadn't held back at all. He had unleashed a fatal attack. They were only measly Genesis tier cultivators, and they hadn't even advanced to the severing mundane tier. Yet they had actually dared to provoke him. His quick and brutal attack instantly terrified the remaining bandits. They screamed in fear as they fled in disarray. The three remaining survivors of the other group all breathed a sigh of relief. They then hurriedly thanked Ling Han and the others. "We still have urgent matters to attend to, so we'll take our leave first. When we get to Red Fruit City, we'll make sure to thank you properly," one person said. Ling Han initially hadn't planned to play the part of a hero. He hadn't planned to ask for any thank you gift, either. However, the words of this person displeased him greatly. This was far too perfunctory, no? This person hadn't given his name, nor had he given any specific location. That being the case, how would Ling Han and the others find them at Red Fruit City? He swept his gaze over them. These people were most likely merchants, and they had a total of 10 carriages of goods. When his gaze lingered over one of these carriages, tense expressions spread across the faces of the three people. "We're also tired after walking for so long, so we'll borrow one of your carriages to rest," Ling Han said with a smile. As he said this, he walked toward that carriage. "Good sir," the three people exclaimed as they obstructed his path. "Come, please use this carriage. It's the largest and the most spacious, and its interior is also the most extravagant." "Piss off," the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire said with a humph. With a flick of his hand, the three people instantly collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. Ling Han laughed, and he praised the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire by saying, "You're becoming better and better in your role as my underling." "Piss off," the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire said with a ticked-off expression. When they arrived before that carriage, Ling Han reached over to open the carriage door, only to see 2 rows of women sitting inside. They were huddled together, and they all wore expressions of fear and terror. Looking closely, he could see that all of the women were bound by ropes. Ling Han instantly came to a realization. The bandits had indeed been genuine bandits. However, these merchants weren't some kind of upstanding citizens, either. They were involved in human trafficking, so it was no wonder that they had been so anxious and tried to prevent him from entering this carriage. One of the three people suddenly unleashed a bellow as he lunged forward and swung his broadsword at Hunyo. He knew they had been exposed, so he planned to take one of the women as a hostage. That way, he could use her to threaten Ling Han. Upon seeing this, the 2 other people also woke from their daze. They hurriedly raised their swords and charged forward. Hunyo giggled before unleashing a deafening bellow. Boom! The weapons and clothes of the 3 people all exploded into smithereens. Their skin also cracked apart, causing blood to pour down their bodies. They started to stumble around, and it was as if they were drunk. Ling Han sent the heavenly emperor of thunder and fire over to free the bound women. Meanwhile, he jumped off the carriage with a smile and said, "You people are far too unprofessional when it comes to human trafficking. At the very least, you need to prepare a spatial god tool." The 3 people grumbled in their minds. If they could have afforded spatial god tools, they naturally wouldn't have taken such a big risk and gone to so much trouble. However, they were only at the Genesis tier, and they weren't familiar with the regulations of space, either. Thus, they couldn't make their own spatial god tools. 2 birds of a feather. Ling Han resolutely lashed out. Pa! The 3 people exploded into clouds of blood. However, even though they had saved these people, they were now a burden on their group. After all, could they just abandon these frail women here? Neither Ling Han nor the others could find it in their heart to be so cruel. Thus, they had no option but to take these women home. Fortunately, the human traffickers had been low in cultivation level, so they didn't have the ability to kidnap people from too far away. As such, they managed to take them all home after just 2 days. Apart from one person. It was a small girl who was only 7 or 8 years old. She was wearing a green dress, and she was truly as adorable as could be. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been targeted by the human traffickers either. However, the problem was that she was actually mute. This complicated things greatly. The other kidnapped women hadn't known where this young girl had come from either. Ling Han and the others asked around in the surrounding villages, yet they couldn't find anyone who had lost a young daughter. After a while, they indeed found someone who claimed to have lost a daughter. However, Ling Han and the others discovered that this person harbored evil intentions and was simply coveting the girl's beauty. In the end, Ling Han and the others had no option but to take her along with them. This young girl couldn't speak, so she was naturally quiet. However, her eyes were extremely lively, and at times, it even looked as if she possessed intelligence that could see through the mortal world. Ling Han and the others were quite astonished by this. Just what had this young girl experienced to possess such an expression? She was extremely peculiar, and she was always gazing into the distance. She wouldn't respond to any question either. Ling Han and the others all clicked their tongues in wonder. This young girl was truly as pure as a pond of water. Just how had she been raised to be so bright and pretty? This made Ling Han want to take her as a disciple. However, the young girl didn't respond to anyone, so he naturally couldn't take her in as a disciple even if he wanted to. They continued on their trip. Because they had already arrived in the 7 majestic heaven, it only took them 14 more days to arrive before the treasure chamber. Of course, they had encountered several more enemies these past few days. The final few hadn't challenged them head-on, and they had instead laid traps or attempted to assassinate them. It was as if they had finally realized that they couldn't defeat Ling Han head-on. However, none of this could trouble Ling Han. His physique had almost reached the Celestial King tier, so as long as he wasn't attacked by a Celestial King, only hacking him with a Celestial tool could deal any damage. Right now, apart from the ancestor of the Kong clan, he hadn't come across another ascending origin tier elite who possessed a Celestial tool. In this sense, the ancestor of the Kong clan was even more impressive than those disciples of the heavenly venerates. This was a lifeless and desolate mountain. There was nothing unique about it at all. However, none of them realized that after arriving here, the young girl Ling Han and the others called her Ching Ching One because she refused to change out of her green dress appeared as if she had regained her soul. The ancestor of the Kong clan fiddled left and right. After a long while, a passageway suddenly materialized at the foot of the desolate mountain. Ling Han didn't tell the ancestor of the Kong clan to lead the way. Instead, he grabbed him in his hand. That way, he could toss him forward to block any potential dangers that they encountered. Shortly after entering, the entrance behind them automatically resealed itself. The desolate mountain returned to its original form. Chapter 2391, Breaking the Restrictions. Chapter 2391, Breaking the Restrictions. The passageway was dark and eerie. However, following the sounds of their footsteps, the passageway started to light up section by section. Above them were pieces of jade-like rock. They could emit light and quickly illuminated the entire passageway. The passageway wasn't long, and a large expanse of space opened up before them after a short while. They were standing in a cave atop a cliff. Before them was a stretch of buildings, situated around 3,000 meters below them. These buildings were exquisite, yet they also seemed dignified and majestic at the same time. They were all constructed from bricks and tiles, and the columns that stood among them were all engraved with dragons and phoenixes. The surrounding areas were filled with bamboo forests that gently swayed with the wind. "This is the treasure chamber," the ancestor of the Kong clan announced. "Let's go." They flew down the cliff, yet they discovered that the expanse of buildings was protected by some kind of energy barrier. They couldn't enter this place directly. Ling Han could have attempted many different things. For example, he could have hacked at this barrier with his divine demon sword. He could have also asked Wally to analyze this barrier. There were many potential ways to destroy this barrier. However, Since the ancestor of the Kong clan was here, why would he go to so much effort? Come on, lead the way. The ancestor of the Kong clan led them before the expanse of buildings. After his fiddling with some unknown thing, they could then proceed into the area unhindered. The buildings in front are all ordinary buildings. They're simply residences, the ancestor of the Kong clan said. Only the 7 buildings in the backhouse treasures, so don't waste your time here. Even though he said this, how could they trust him so easily? They carefully searched all of the buildings. However, just as the ancestor of the Kong clan had said, these buildings were indeed devoid of treasures. After carefully searching all of the buildings, they finally arrived before the last 7 buildings. These buildings were clearly larger than the others. Moreover, the 7 buildings were laid out in an intriguing manner, with each of them seemingly conforming and resonating with the other. This was a 7 stars arrangement, where the central building was even larger and grander. It appeared much like an imperial chamber. How do we enter? Ling Han asked. According to our agreement, I've already led you people here. Shouldn't you release me now? The ancestor of the Kong clan replied. Heh, deciding things for yourself now, are we? Ling Han patted the old man's shoulder. Who had agreed to this? The ancestor of the Kong clan naturally understood this as well. He started to bargain with them, saying, Fine, if you want me to undo the restrictions, then unseal my cultivation first. Right now, he was no different from an ordinary person. Sit aside first, Ling Han said. He naturally wouldn't concede any ground. He turned to Wally and asked, Want some treasures? If you do, then undo the restrictions here. You're taking advantage of me, Wally said in protest. He had surprisingly gained some intelligence. Ling Han laughed and said, Suit yourself. If I undo the restrictions by myself, you don't need to think about getting any of the treasures. If you undo it, however, I can share some with you. After performing some calculations, Wally nodded in agreement. The women all shook their heads upon seeing this. In terms of calculation ability, Wally was truly as capable as could be. In terms of worldly wisdom, however, he was just as naive. If Ling Han undid the restrictions, the treasures would all belong to Ling Han. Then, if Wally undid the restrictions, shouldn't all of the treasures belong to him? Yet, he had actually agreed to Ling Han's proposal. In reality, everything was a trap. However, in Wally's eyes, it was extremely reasonable that he only received a portion of the treasures since there were so many people here. They were truly speechless about their husband. He would screw humans over, and he would even screw non-humans over. Wally walked forward. However, after taking a few steps, the floor suddenly lit up, unleashing a slash at him. This was a devastating attack that was at least at the consummate level of the ascending origin tier. Whoosh! The blade of light slashed forth, yet Wally retreated even quicker. In some sense, he was also a cultivator of body arts. He didn't draw on the power of regulations, and he instead drew on the power of heaven and earth to unleash his might. As a result, his explosive power was even greater. The blade of light flashed past, yet it struck no target. Astonishment spread across the face of the ancestor of the Kong clan. The first time he had come here, he had been filled with excitement, yet he had also been lacking in power. Thus, he had suffered extremely grave wounds after being struck by this blade of light. However, it had also been because of this that he had recognized the importance of this treasure chamber. Now, however, Wally had actually dodged this attack with such ease. This instantly made him feel displeased. Wally continued to advance, and the blades of light also slashed forth one after another. However, they all failed to strike him. After a while, Wally came to a stop, not advancing any further. At the same time, light burst from his eyes, and it was very likely that he was performing some furious calculations. After a long while, he finally opened his eyes and said, "Follow me. Don't make any misstep." He took the lead, and everyone followed after him. The ancestor of the Kong clan was still hanging in Ling Han's grip. After taking a few steps, astonishment spread across the face of the ancestor of the Kong clan. This was because Wally had genuinely undone the restrictions of this building. He was unable to accept this. One had to realize that he had paid a huge price for discovering each step. He had suffered severe internal injuries, and it had taken him tens of thousands of years to recover each time. There had been many times that he had wanted to give up because this had been a truly torturous task. However, Wally hadn't been struck a single time. With just a few attempts, he had already undone the restrictions of this place. How could the ancestor of the Kong clan not feel frustrated and irritated? However, how could he know that Wally was actually the culmination of several hundred epochs of knowledge from a higher-level dimension? If he couldn't break the simple restriction of a celestial king, what right would the dark inverse realm have to invade the foreign realm? Wally led the way, and it wasn't long before they made it inside the building. After entering, what greeted them was row after row of shelves. There were all kinds of things on these shelves, with most of them being alchemical pills. However, many of the shelves were already empty. Their contents had clearly been taken by the ancestor of the Kong clan. "Hang on," Wally said. "There's a main control hub here, and if I close it, all of the restrictions here will disappear. However, this restriction also has the effect of maintaining the freshness of the items here. After closing it, the things here will slowly decay." Ling Han smiled and said, "That's fine." Wally went over to fiddle with the control hub. After a short while, he nodded and said, "It's done." Ling Han stepped forward, and sure enough, there wasn't any reaction at all. It was as if this were truly an ordinary building. The most shocked person was naturally the ancestor of the Kong clan. He had initially planned to bargain with his captors, first regaining his cultivation and then taking advantage of his familiarity with this place to trick them to lead them to their deaths. To his shock and disbelief, however, Wally's presence rendered the restrictions here completely useless. Ching Ching also fluttered her eyelids as she glanced at Wally. It was as if she were curious. Ling Han and the others swept away all of the treasures. Most of the treasures had already been taken by the ancestor of the Kong clan, but there were still many things remaining. Most of the remaining treasures were alchemical pills, but there were also some other things such as precious jade that was extremely beneficial to cultivation. These treasures were all useless to Wally. Thus, Ling Han wrote him another debt slip, promising to pay him back with divine metal and other similar items in the future. Only Wally would agree to such unfair exchanges. However, Wally didn't feel that this was unfair. He was extremely motivated as he undid the restrictions of the second building. Ling Han examined the alchemical pills. Sure enough, these were the works of a 5-star alchemist. Most of the alchemical pills had reached the 8th refinement, and a small number of them had even reached the 9th refinement. However, only a single alchemical pill had reached the 10th refinement. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.